Sometimes you gotta do that. I was fucked up, fucked up, fucked up, fucked up. I was fucked up, fucked up, fucked up, fucked up. I was fucked up, fucked up, fucked up, fucked up. I was fucked up, fucked up, fucked up. When I did it, I was fucked up, fucked up, fucked up, fucked up. I was fucked up, fucked up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
I'm not going to call P. Diddy a bitch. 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 P. Diddy a bitch.
Sean Combs is a bitch. Yeah. Sean Combs is a bitch. They bitches too. Sean Combs is a bitch. Yeah. Sean Combs is a bitch.
You don't hit women when you're a man. You don't hit women when you're a man. P. Diddy a bitch. 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 P. Diddy a bitch.
Sean Combs is a bitch. Yeah.
I'm not going to call P. Diddy a bitch or any other name like that. But I ain't gonna stop anybody else from doing it. I'm not gonna malign them. P. Diddy a bitch. P. Diddy a bitch. P. Diddy a bitch. P. Diddy a bitch. P. Diddy.
Nobody knows why liars lie. Winners are not allowed to allow losers to rewrite history. It's God's side and the other side. Country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good, who became bitch and look like Mr. Potato Head.
I didn't want to be a movie star.
No, you couldn't be a movie star. Ricky Smiley can't act, cause Ricky Smiley can't act. Why is he in a dress again? He didn't be wanting to Barbie, and you gotta tell him no. Sid ain't got no special, you remember? Steve ain't got no special, you remember? Ricky ain't got no special, you remember? Sir, I have 12 comedy specials. P. Diddy or whoever you is, TVJ, 20 of them. I won't stop burning you down until there ain't nothing left. Rubble on top of rubble, and I'll still be bombing. Look like a wall, Richard. Look like a wall. You didn't say no. Look like a wall, Richard. Look like a wall. You didn't say no.
All right. Hello, Grand Rising, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Dr._A.Shakur and also on X at DGoddess27. And as per usual, if you don't like what the Queen is cooking, you already know what to do. Okay, so let's get ready to get into it. All right, before we do, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, now let's see who is up in here. All right, Lynn is here, Nessie X, Nubian Cutie, Buckhorse DC, Claudette, We the People, Leon is here. All right, so let's get into it. Everybody hit that like button, please. Thank you in advance. I see you, James Allen, Subliminal Frequency, Jeff ATL, Reggie. All right, DJ Big Six, Byron is in the house. Okay, Most Hated Bronze Flat Power God. Let's get into it. Vince I Am, all the way from the UK. Okay, Star Child is here. All right. 504 Nola's in the house. Shout out to all of my loyal royals and everyone tuned into the Queen. And a big shout out to my moderators for putting in work. Okay, so you guys, hey, Mama Joycelyn. Okay, so you guys who tuned in yesterday, you all know it got real salacious. It was all nefarious at the end of the day, but I got more details from my source that I told you all is actually at the courthouse, okay, every day. So with that all being said, I'm going to go over some of this information, honey, because I had to take notes. Hold on. I know y'all hear the papers ruffling. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about it because, you know, the testimony that Cassie gave yesterday, it was all about the freak-offs. Okay, hey, Khalid, Herline, beloved, I love you too. Okay, it was all about the freak-offs. Now, there were some details we didn't get to hear, but let me just tell y'all something. This stuff is so graphic and so really disgusting. Okay, let's talk about how Diddy had that baby pool, one of those little kiddie pools. He would fill it up with oil and make Cassie get inside of it. Okay, and just cover herself, just get drenched in the oil. And then let's not skip over the fact that during the testimony, now this wasn't in any of the media outlets that I got information from yesterday while I was on live, but Diddy supposedly was making Cassie have these freak-offs when it was that time of the month. Okay, just think about that. When it was that time of the month, also crazy. And she talked about how they would pour candle wax. See, the mood had to be set. Diddy wanted dimly lit lights. He wanted candlelight. Okay, he wanted the room to be really hot. Okay, can y'all imagine that? I just smell the funk of it all, okay? Wanted it really hot. And here's the thing. When we think back to that interview that Diddy did, was it on Conan O'Brien? If you guys remember, I showed it to you like over 2 years ago when Diddy was on there talking about when you have women at your house for a party, you got to keep it real hot and stuff. And you got to have lots of water. I can't remember. I think, did he say, no, he said, don't give him water, but have it really hot. Y'all remember all that crazy stuff he was saying? Well, that's what it reminded me of when they said Cassie was talking about the hot room and said they'd have to pour candle wax, drip it all over each other and stuff. Hold on, let me just read straight from these notes because I'm trying to go off the top. Okay, so said they would have to heat up the baby oil, honey. Okay, not just put the baby oil everywhere, but they had to heat it up in the microwave. Okay, that's what they had to do. Then they had the blow up pool, and they would fill the blow up pool with baby oil and Astroglide. And then Cassie had to dunk herself in there and get totally covered. Okay, they poured the candle wax all over each other. She said she'd have to pour it on the S worker. He'd have to pour it on her, and then the room was always very hot. And then she was asked by the prosecutor, how did it smell after the freak off? Honey, this is all nefarious. She asked poor Cassie, how did it smell? But you can imagine, because I really feel like I can smell it right now, can't y'all? But so anyway, Cassie said that it smelled musty. Okay, said it smelled like body odor. Ugh, so disgusting, honey. Okay, and then the furniture. Remember how they would always say that Diddy'd have to pay for the damages to the rooms and whatnot? Hold on, I'm cracking up because somebody said, I'm reading the comments in the chat. Y'all are so nefarious, honey. Hold on. Where was that comment? Somebody said, most hated bronze black power God said, so nefarious. Nina said third degree burns. Okay, but anyway, it's all sick. So listen. So she said that it smelled musty and smelled like body odor, and there was candle wax everywhere. And remember when they talked about how Diddy would have to pay for the damages to the rooms? Well, that's why, because they'd have candle wax, baby oil stuff all over the darn furniture. I mean, just ruining the hotels. Okay, the furniture was destroyed. All right, it's just all so crazy. And hold on. And then she said that she talked about the time that she choked on the urine. She said that was because Diddy and an escort both stood over her. That's what it sounds like. Zara said satanic rituals, honey. It sounds disgusting. So she said that the time that she choked on the urine was because Diddy and the S worker stood over her and both were spraying it, giving her waterworks, okay, right in her mouth while she was just lying there. She said she was so doped up off of the illegal substances that she was just laying there. Okay. I mean, it just reminded me of that whole thing with R. Kelly. What is wrong with these elite people? And let me tell you all something. My source told me that this is just the tip of the iceberg compared to what some of these people do. These people are disgusting, honey. Okay. Anyway, so the prosecutor asked Cassie, didn't that make you get sick? You know, like all that stuff, all the illegal substances and I was thinking the same thing with the urine going down here. Ugh. Anyway, she said, yes, she would get sick. She would feel disgusted from all of the urine, you know, going down her mouth and all that stuff. And, you know, it made me think about Young Miami when she was on that interview with Trina and she said something about golden showers, then tried to act like she was just joking. I knew she wasn't joking then. And then Cassie said, imagine two men standing over you, just peeing on you while you're high off of rugs with a D. And so then talked about some of the S workers. Diddy wanted her to book men, wanted her to book these black men with big black D's. Y'all remember we read that all in the lawsuit. So disgusting. And they would go to they would use cowboysforangels.com, Craigslist, and Black Page to book the S workers. Excuse me. And they used the names Jackie Starr, Frank Black, and Frank White, which I thought the Frank White was interesting because isn't that what Biggie used to call himself? Frank White, the King of New York. I could have sworn. Okay, so that was interesting for me. And so then there was a worker that they really liked named Garen. They called him CB4A. Okay, Cassie hired the dancers and the strippers. And remember, Cassie said she didn't know what they were doing was illegal. Yeah, I still don't buy that one. Then they would pay $1,500 to $6,000 for the men. Okay, they preferred Black and Latin men. Okay, that's what they preferred. And then full payment was only given to the guys if they finished, you know, if they did the do, and if that bodily fluid, you know, the man juice, if that came, if there was no man juice, Diddy wasn't paying. Okay, they get discounts if they didn't do everything Diddy wanted, honey. Okay, they wanted dark skin. No, they said there was hold on. Okay, so there was this one S worker named Dave that they'd have flown out. They flew him out to New York, to Miami, Los Angeles, etc. And Dave was dark skinned. And then there was the first one they had. He had locks in his hair. Cassie couldn't remember his name, but he had locks. And there was another one. His name was Clayton Howard. He was one of the favorites. Clayton Howard was. And then, of course, Daniel Phillip. That's the one who testified the other day. And then Jules was he was one of the main escorts, Jules. Okay, and they'd fly him out to LA, New York, Miami, Vegas, etc. Okay, and they were having a freak off with Jules in LA the night of the video of Diddy beating Cassie. So remember when the officer Israel Flores said that there was someone dressed in black sitting on the bed? Now, I don't know if he really saw that because he didn't mention anything about it back then on his incident report, so I don't know. But they said there was a guy with him by the name of Jules. This is what Cassie said. His name was Jules, and he was there the night that the hotel incident happened. Okay, then there was an S worker named the Punisher, honey. The Punisher, that sounds all nefarious. I can only imagine why they called him that. And I bet he was probably Diddy's favorite. Okay, the Punisher. And then there was a Latino S worker. I think his name was Johnny, if I'm not mistaken. They were giving me so much information, honey. I was scribbling it all down as fast as I could. Okay, then, they'd fly these men out. She said that Clayton Howard was a favorite. So I just find this all so interesting at the end of the day. I find it all so nefarious. Quad said, what happened to Jonathon Oddi? Jonathon Oddi is currently, listen, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what we're going to talk about right after this. I have some new information. Don't forget, you heard it here first. I have some new information on Jonathon Oddi. He just did an interview, y'all. Please pay attention. He said that he feared for Cassie's life. We're going to talk about that in just a second, honey. Now, y'all got that from here first, so don't even try it. Okay, so anyway, so Clayton Howard was a favorite. Cassie would call the travel agency and say they had a new employee and that we need him on the payroll, and so they could fly him in. Now, the reason they were doing this is because Cassie said Diddy was trying to keep his business. He didn't want people all up in his business, knowing that he was hiring these men. But let me just tell y'all something real nasty that Cassie said, honey. And the children heard this because unlike when the children left during the testimony, or the girls, that is, they left during the testimony of Daniel Phillip, the S worker, but they didn't leave. They listened to every bit of Cassie's testimony, and they heard the part where Cassie said that Diddy would have her, doing stuff with these workers and then would want them to spray body fluids on Cassie. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And then he would be in the back room, Diddy, and he'd be in another room. And then Cassie, when she's done, comes in there with the stuff all over her body and then rubs it on Diddy. Ugh, y'all hear that? Then she'd have to rub it on Diddy, specifically on his nipples. And then Diddy would sit there and pleasure himself. Nasty freak. I am so through. I am absolutely so through. Okay. This is what was going down. Can y'all imagine? Above all that drama, said this is beyond nasty. I know it is, honey. I know it is. So anyway, the freak off sessions goes on to say, it says they would pretend the S worker was a business partner or an employee because Diddy didn't want people in his business. They had to have rugs for the freak offs. The freak off sessions, they call them sessions, you guys. So one session might last 3 hours. They take a break and then they go back and have another one. Jonathon Oddi, by the way, said that he had like 15 sessions with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, so anyway, let me see here. Okay, they would all sit around, and here's what Cassie said too. Here's how the freak offs would start. They would sit around and pleasure themselves, like all sitting there watching each other. Like Cassie might be pleasuring Diddy, and then the guy pleasuring himself, and it just all kind of weird stuff. And then she'd have to grab the other man's cucumber while she's talking to Diddy, and Diddy would want her to talk to him, and he'd be asking her questions. Oh my goodness, I'm really going to start blushing if I tell y'all what Diddy was asking Cassie. It's all so ridiculous. He would say to her, because the prosecutor said, and he would tell Cassie to talk to him, and the prosecutor said, what did he want you to say? And Cassie said he would say things like, do you like that D? Do you like that F and D? How does it feel? Is it big? How does it look? Does it make you feel good? Oh, honey, this is all nefarious, child. Diddy is a freak. Okay. I talked about the S worker's D to Diddy, and he'd sit there and pleasure himself. What kind of freak nastiness? Okay. She says it was weird describing some other man's D, okay, to her man. Like, just imagine that. She said she was humiliated, okay, and it felt so awkward, and she didn't like it. She didn't really want to do it. It was just all so much. But she agreed to do it because she loved Diddy. Now, that was the first stage of the freak off session. Okay, then the next stage 2, you all take notes because I know some of you freakazoids is going to try this at home. I know some of you nasty freakazoids in here is going to try this at home. I wouldn't advise it. But anyway, so listen, on a serious tip. So she said, and I'm sorry, this is not funny, but sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying. I am so serious because it's all just a lot. So anyway, she said she didn't really want to do it, but she agreed to do it because she was in love with Diddy. Okay, so then they go into the second stage of the freak off. This is where they have to heat up the oil. Okay, this is where they'd have to heat up the oil, honey, and then they had to do fellatio. She said she'd have to be licking the guy's cucumber, and then she said it might go like this, you guys. Okay, I'm just gonna try to say this as pleasantly as possible. She said that she might be, on all four in front of the one of the S workers, and another one might just come and get her from the back, and she'd be surprised or whatever. Okay, while she's oh no, I'm sorry, she'd be doing Diddy's. She said she'd be doing Diddy's cucumber, and then one of the S workers might just come from the back. Sometimes it'd just be her and the S worker, and Diddy would watch, but sometimes he'd actually join. So anyway, I'm saying Diddy sounds like a legit corn director. Okay, that's what he sounds like, shaking my damn head. Okay, and then if anybody didn't finish, specifically the S workers, if they didn't, spew out that man juice, Diddy would get so mad. Okay, and he had this saying that he would tell them. What would he tell them? I don't know, but she said he once asked a worker, "Did you finish?" You know what I'm talking about. Okay, did you rum with a C? Okay, because him and Cassie couldn't tell, she said. And the guy said yes. Now, there were sessions to the freak offs after that first session, the worker would go into the living room. Diddy and Cassie would have their alone time, okay, which is all Cassie really wanted. She said that's why she'd agree to do the freak offs, because she knew that after they had the first session or, several of the sessions or whatever, then her and Diddy would get their alone time. And that's when they'd go into the room and stuff. So in the room alone, Diddy would tell her to put it on him, the man juice, okay? And then sit there and pleasure his little nasty self, okay? Just imagine rubbing that on somebody's nipples. Yeah, it's got to be all sticky and just, ugh. Anyway, and not only were his kids there and heard this, but so was Misa, his baby's mom. Now, Cassie said that these sessions could last from like 1 to 3 hours. Okay, if the man didn't do what he's supposed to do, he got less money. Diddy would say, this is what Diddy would tell the S worker. He'd say, it's a process. You have to slow down. And then one freak off could have 3 to 4 men involved. Okay, and that's because they'd have sessions. Okay, so just imagine if you had like 4 sessions for one freak off. That's 4 different dudes that Cassie's got to be bothered with. And if she got tired, Diddy would coach her along like he was Coach Prime out there on the football field. Okay, he would coach her. He'd be like, "You got this. You got this. Come on, champ. You got it. Come on, bring it home." Who does that? She said she would be sick a lot too, and she felt like her body was just an object, like a whole. Not even like a human, like being so objectified, servicing all these men, but she did it because she loved him. They say that Cassie's testimony was given, it was just really shocking. And so if they wanted to stop, or they got tired, or said they were feeling sick, etc., Diddy would say, finish strong, come on, finish strong. Okay, I'm like, dang, not coaching them to the finish line. What the hell? Come on, champ, you got this. You got this, champ. Can you imagine? You're sitting there fighting for your life at a freak off that you clearly don't want to be in, wishing for it just to hurry up and be over, rugged up with a D, okay? About to pass out, probably feeling sick from all the rugs. And then somebody sitting there, come on, champ, finish strong. You got this. You got it. Who the hell? Hey, this is unbelievable for me. Worse than I ever could have thought, as far as I'm concerned. And then she said sometimes it was 2 men plus Diddy. She felt like an object and being objectified by all these men. Diddy would ask her how she liked it. Okay. Then say, Tell me you like it. Tell me you like it. And then sometimes if Diddy wasn't physically there where Cassie was, this freak would call her on FaceTime and set up his phone, sit there and pleasure himself while he's watching them on FaceTime. What a weirdo, if this is all true. And I believe it is. Okay? Or he'd set up an iPad. And then oh, and also, y'all, listen to this. This is so damn crazy. Cassie said that they would take Viagra sometimes. And then one time Diddy was so lit, he gave Cassie Viagra. And so I guess that's how Cassie started taking Viagra, because she said Diddy gave her a Viagra and she took it. Natural Tech said virtual freak-offs. That should have been the title of this video, beloved. That was a good one. But look, she said Diddy gave her a Viagra. And she said that Viagra does the same thing for women that it does for men. It just makes you more sensitive. And she said it gave her the sensitivity that she needed. I'm like, all of y'all was just doing the most, honey. Okay. When she said some of this stuff, my source told me that the whole courtroom gasped. Okay. They literally gasped. Like everybody's eyes were just all big. Everybody's just like shocked and appalled. Okay. And so she said it gave her the sensitivity she wanted. Afterwards, they'd hang out and do more rugs, her and Diddy. And one day, he decided to record the freak-offs. And that's when it all started, with him recording the stuff. And she really didn't want him doing it, but he made up his mind that that's what he was going to do. Can y'all imagine? I mean, just the funk of it all. Okay, it reminds me of that video Thriller with Michael Jackson. Remember that part where Vincent Price was narrating and he said the funk of 50,000 years or something? Y'all remember that? That's what I smelled when I heard all this. What in the hell? Yeah, it's really crazy. Really crazy. James Allen said Viagra, rugs, hot baby oil, heat on high in the space. I'm surprised nobody passed out. Oh, speaking of passed out, you're going to hear about that. Let's get into it. Let's get into what Jonathon Oddi had to say. Okay, before, you know what? As a matter of fact, before I play what Jonathon Oddi had to say, let's go to Lauren from the Breakfast Club. I know she should be on by now, and you know she's inside court too, and everybody can't get everything, so I like getting different information from different people who were there, because you can get more facts that way. Okay, so let's go to that. Then we definitely have to talk about what Jonathon Oddi said, because Jonathon Oddi, according to him, somebody absolutely did pass out. Please pay attention. Hold on, let me go to my updates first. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Here's his morning report, his little video that he always does. We'll start with that.
Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse today, Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Well, Diddy docket, civil and criminal, of course. Yet we're live tweeting the criminal trial of Sean Combs. Yesterday, they finished with the male dancer Daniel Phillip, and then Cassie took the stand. It was really, it was something. You can find, of course, the tweets. We've also put extra stuff on Substack and some of the filings on Patreon. But the legal issue that's arising is whether when she's under cross-examination, which will begin today, whether she'll be allowed to talk to her lawyer, who's Douglas Wigdor, a noted Me Too and other, mostly a civil lawyer. He had a case with Leon Block in which he dropped out, but that's another matter. In any event, both he and the lawyer for Mia are wanting to say that they have every right to speak with their client during cross. Now, often it's said that a witness can't speak to the lawyer during cross in order to not coordinate, but the government and they are citing the Victims' Rights Act. Of course, Alexander Shapiro for Combs said that can't trump the rights of the defendant to get to the truth, i.e., mess up the testifying witness. So there's that. On the civil Diddy docket, in one of the many cases initially brought by Tony Busby, he's withdrawn from them, has another lawyer on the case. It was a Jane Doe versus Sean Combs case. in which involving, I think, 2014 in Las Vegas. In any case, it's been found and ruled by Judge Broderick here of the Southern District that Jane Doe cannot proceed under pseudonym and must either give her name by May 20th in an amended complaint or see the case dismissed on that ground. So there's a lot of this is how it's going. We're covering it closely. It seems to be going out all over the place, including Perry Match. Not that it matters. We've asked, believe it or not, to go international. We've asked the UN about it because they often are talking about, I think they put on orange shirts. They do all of this stuff. Of course, the UN itself is deeply involved in sexual abuse through their peacekeepers. These guys have full immunity. They're sent to some of the most dysfunctional, poor countries on earth: the Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay, thank you, Matthew, beloved. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the updates that he's posted, and then I'll go over this paperwork that Diddy's attorneys filed against Douglas Wigder, because he wants to be able to confer with Cassie during cross-examination, which is really unusual, but I could probably see why he wants to do that. Okay, so 5 minutes ago. Okay, U.S. versus Sean Combs. Cassie still on direct, then cross. Okay, May 14th, Inner City Press. Okay, 4 minutes ago, all rise. Judge Subramaniam, we have a note from a juror about a scheduling accommodation. It's not in the docket. What about Miss Ventura's husband? AUSA says he will be removed from the courtroom before a certain issue comes up. The judge says good. Then the judge says, have the privacy screens been installed? AUSA says they are being installed by court tech staff. Now, if they're putting up the privacy screens, beloveds, what they're putting that up for is likely for the videos of the freak-offs. Because remember, this is only supposed to be seen by the defense counsels, the jurors, and the prosecution. The media and the public are not supposed to see that. So that's why they're putting up these screens, I would imagine. Okay, so they asked, have the screens been installed? The judge asked. The AUSA says they're being installed by court tech staff. Judge says, on the conferring with counsel issue, I tend to agree with Ms. Shapiro. Okay, good, because that don't even sound right to me. Okay, Douglas Wigder, I think he wants to try to coach Cassie. See, here's the thing. You don't get to coach. You should not get to coach your client on the stand. He said that Cassie was ready, okay, that she was confident. So why does she need him to counsel her during cross-examination? No, go sit down somewhere and let us hear what she has to say and how she responds to questions. I want to hear it organically, not being coached. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, the judge agrees with Ms. Shapiro. AUSA says, what about conferring about questions about privilege? Okay, so we'll see how this all turns out. So that's the updates for now. All right, so let's get to this paperwork. We'll go over this paperwork and then we'll get into Jonathon Oddi. Okay, I'm going to stop the share on this. I'll come back to it at some point. All right, hi guys. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. So as I said, this was written by Diddy's attorneys to the judge asking that Douglas Wigder not be allowed to sit there and confer with Cassie while she's being cross-examined. Okay, so this was on yesterday. Dear Judge Subramaniam, the government respectfully submits this letter in opposition to the defendant's request that witnesses be prohibited from communicating with their attorneys during breaks in cross-examination. In making his request, the defendant cited no cases holding that third-party witnesses should be prohibited from speaking with their independent counsel during breaks in cross-examination. Rather, the defendant cited Perry versus Leak, okay, from 1989, which related only to whether a testifying defendant can be prohibited by speaking with counsel during a 15-minute afternoon recess. Now, the Supreme Court also emphasized that while a short prohibition of communication between a testifying defendant and counsel may be permissible, an overnight prohibition violates the Sixth Amendment. As long as a defendant is provided unfettered access to his attorney during subsequent overnight breaks, a midday 1-hour ban on discussing ongoing testimony is likely to interfere only in minimal ways on any constitutionally protected communication. Now, in explaining its decision, the Supreme Court in Perry noted that witnesses may be sequestered to lessen the danger that their testimony will be influenced by hearing what other witnesses have to say, which serves the truth-seeking function of the trial. But the language made clear that such sequestration remains a matter of the trial court's discretion and is not mandatory. In support of that proposition, the Supreme Court cited one case in which a defense witness improperly spoke with defense counsel as opposed to the witness's counsel. Okay. Okay, then they reference some cases or whatnot. Then it says, during the limited time it has had since the defendant first made his request, the government has been unable to identify any case in which a third-party witness has been prohibited from speaking with her attorney during cross-examination. By contrast, the government has identified multiple cases in which judges in the district have denied similar defense motions in criminal trials seeking to bar witnesses from speaking with their attorneys. Okay, so let's just get to the bottom of it. Okay, so should the court nevertheless consider issuing such a sweeping order, the government understands that counsel for at least 2 victims wish to be heard on the matter. Specifically, counsel for Cassandra Ventura and counsel for the victim witness testifying under the pseudonym Maya have asked that the court allow them to be heard before prohibiting them from speaking with their clients during cross-examination. The government hopes that time need not be wasted on such a briefing and argument because there is ample reason to deny the defendant's request without further proceedings. Okay, so this is not from Diddy's team, my bad. This is actually, even though Diddy's team did complain about it and they don't want it to happen, this is from the prosecution's office. Okay, this is from Jay Clayton, United States Attorney, respectfully submitted. So what they're saying is they basically don't think it's going to be a problem. Well, the judge obviously begs to differ and agrees with Diddy's attorney, Ms. Shapiro. Now, like I said, that's very unusual in my opinion. And at the end of the day, he already told us that Cassie, he said yesterday, Cassie was confident she's ready. Okay, so I don't think he needs to be trying to coach her during the break. That's just my opinion. All right, so that all being said, let's see. Hold on, let me get rid of this real quick. Okay, so while we're waiting for updates, let's go to Jonathon Oddi because y'all, okay, Jonathon, oh, no, I'm sorry. We said we're going to go to Lauren first, but Jonathon Oddi, I can't believe that he came out and spoke. Hold on, is this what I'm looking for? Okay, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Hold on, I have several videos. I'm trying to make sure this is the right one that I'm queuing up here. Okay, yeah, this is it right here. Okay, so listen, y'all know I told y'all, they demonetized my video the other day for using the Breakfast Club, even though I edited it or whatever. So today I'm just going to use the audio. Okay, I'm just going to use the audio today. With that all being said, so let me share my screen. And I'm just going to completely cover it with an overlay. There we go.
For your construction accident case. So it's week 2 of Diddy's trial here in New York, and day 2 kicked off with Cassie, who was the star witness for the prosecutors taking the stand. Now, a lot of people feel like Cassie dropped the ball yesterday with her testimony, but I do not agree whatsoever. Cassie got on the stand and she detailed everything from the first day that they met to the time that they spent together, her 21st birthday, where that was her first time kissing, and she admitted that she didn't want to kiss him, that she felt, just very she didn't know how to feel. She felt confused. She was young. She was crying. She set the scene early for the power dynamic of, this big mogul who was supposed to be helping me in music, who had such a big life that she just uncontrollably fell in love with, and things got bigger than her.
That was 17-year age difference, correct?
Yes. And that was the narrative. And they were together, for those who don't know, for 10, 11 years. Now, after she details a lot of the background, she starts going into the things that a lot of us wanted to know about. So they talked to her about the freak offs, and what she says about the freak offs is that Diddy allegedly was in control. She says that, it was very well choreographed. Like, it was almost, when she was describing it, I was like, it sounds like he was shooting a music video.
Executive producing.
No, for real. She says that, there were certain supplies that they would have, right? So they would do candles as the lighting, and it would always be like Glade, or there was another brand that she mentioned because he wanted it to smell a certain way. And then she says, Then she says that they would get extra linens, and we've heard this story, but she said that because we heard before that there were extra linens because
Dookie on the sheets.
So what she said was she was actually made to have freak offs during her period, and so there would be blood on a lot of the sheets. And she said she didn't want to do that, but she was being made to do that allegedly. And she also alleged that there'd be urine on the sheets, and we've heard testimony about the urine and why those things happened allegedly. And baby oil. She said that they would oil up so much. That was like a big thing for Puff allegedly. Like, you had to be oiled, that every 5 minutes they were like just re-oiling because
he wants you to look like a shiny suit.
Yeah, because it glistens, and I guess it's the sexiness of baby oil on it.
He wants you to glisten like them shiny suits he used to wear in the 90s.
This is so sad.
I guess so. And then when we talking about the urine, she talked about that in one of the free calls because they'd asked her, we opened up our testimony or our opening statement, the prosecutors talking about, you alleging that there was a male escort that was made to pee, or I'm sorry, that was made to urinate on you.
You can say pee. Same thing.
Urinate on you. Can you detail that? So she starts to detail that, and she says that at one point she was choking, obvious reasons. And they asked, well, why didn't you just ask them to stop? And when I say them, she updated us and let us know.
Attorney Riley Freeman? This is why wouldn't you just move out the way? That's what he asked her for.
Basically, they just asked, like, at this, because it didn't sound like she was being held against her will at that point, like physically. So they're like, well, why would you just, because she said she laid down with her hands up a lot of times when that was happening because she didn't like it. And it was a lot going on. And she said that not only would the escorts do it, allegedly, Puff would join in as well. And she said when they would get to a point where it was too much for her, sometimes he would tell the escorts, Puff would tell the escorts allegedly, like, yo, all right, let's stop, let's chill. So they asked her, like, why wouldn't you just tell them to stop yourself? And she said, I'm laying on the floor, and allegedly intoxicated by all these things, and it's two men standing over me. What am I going to do? So I just laid there.
With pee.
Yeah. And so
the reason they ask that question is because they know the defense is going to ask that question. So they try to make sure that they ask questions that the defense asked to, make it more comfortable.
Yeah, but she broke the freak offs down in steps as well. She said that the first step was there was like masturbation, and they would have to do masturbation. It would be her and the escort, and she would have to talk out loud and describe what she was seeing. She would have to be very descriptive because allegedly Puff would want to hear that.
She said he would be blindfolded, right?
No, not all the time, because once they got more comfortable with the escorts, from what it seems like she's describing, the blindfolds would come off and all that stuff.
You got mad notes, Lauren. I need to see those.
Yeah, and they're highlighted. I had to organize them better because I felt like yesterday I had a lot of information that I didn't get, so I organized them better. Highlights. I made notes in the back of important points to get to in here. You can read these notes.
Lauren is in the courtroom.
That was a new notebook. At the beginning.
I bought a second one yesterday.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that first step was the descriptive foreplay, and then step 2 is the touching. Now, step 2, she alleges, is that's when all the baby oil comes out. Step 3 is oral, and she says that a lot of times she would rush to get to the oral because she just wanted to get it over with, because she kept making a point of she didn't want to do this. She just was doing it because she was so in love, and she said she didn't want him to go and do it with anybody else. Now, step 4 was the actual intercourse where they would engage in, sex. And she said that sometimes Puff would just watch allegedly, but then she said other times he might join in if they were really comfortable with an escort. So that would look like her giving Puff head and allegedly, or wait, I can't.
No, you can't say that part.
That would look like her giving Puff fellatio.
Fellatio, yes.
And the other escort having sex with her at the same time. Now, she did give us an update I didn't know if I needed. She said that a lot of times after they would finish, the escorts would
Ejaculate.
have a happy ending, and Puff would make her take that happy ending and rub it on his nipples, and then they would engage in whatever they were going to do, just Cassie and Puff allegedly.
So his man milk on Puff's nipples?
That's what Cassie's alleging, that she that Puff liked her to rub it on his chest and on his nipples.
Jesus.
And then
so chocolate covered nipples with a semen drizzle.
Yo,
Glaze.
shut up, man.
And
glaze. We have to say glaze.
Oh, so, yeah. Diddy likes his nipples medium well with a semen glaze.
yeah, she said that anytime that she was having intercourse during the freak offs by herself, and Puff would just be allegedly listening or watching, he would then ask her about it after, and he'd be very descriptive. Like he would ask her, how did the D feel?
Did she rub the semen in the nipples like a DJ scratches a record, or did she rub it in like lotion?
Keep going. Keep going.
She didn't really specify.
Listen,
why you
real quick,
answering him?
Going back to right here, clown. Look, you said that she said she didn't want him to do it with anybody else. Is that because she didn't want anybody to endure any, like, the things that she was doing, or
the way that she put it,
his girlfriend, like, what was happening?
The way that she put it, she said it on stand. I was a very jealous girlfriend when it came to him and other women. And she said, you know, this is this powerful rich man who she was so in love with.
Mm-hmm.
She felt vulnerable because he had shared this secret of these voyeurisms and freak offs that he liked to do. She didn't want another woman coming in and swooping up in her place. And a lot of times she alleges, and we saw actual text messages they brought up where she tried to tell him she didn't want to do a freak off. And he was like, oh, okay, you're boring. You're predictable. I'm sorry. He said, you're predictable. But it was giving the effect of, I don't want him to think I'm boring. I don't want him to think that I'm not down. So I'm going to just do it.
So he don't do it with somebody else.
Yes.
Did he let the semen cool off? Or
What
does he
else?
like his semen warm
What
or
else do
room
we
temperature?
have?
before he-
I don't know the answer to that, but I will say she mentioned that he sometimes liked the oil to be warm, and they would pour wax on each other from the candles sometimes.
You know what?
Allegedly.
The first day you were in court, you said, everybody in the court and the judges and the attorneys, not the judge, the attorneys that were outside watching and the press believe day one went to Diddy. So day two, what did they say in day two? Went to prosecution or Diddy as well?
People believe that it went to Diddy, but I would argue different. I would argue that day two went to the prosecution, because even if you didn't feel like they gave you all the evidence they needed, which she gave a lot. She said that they hired these escorts. She said that they engaged in, these sexual things with these escorts.
She said Diddy got semen recipes.
She said a lot yesterday that sets them up for the landing. They just haven't landed the plane yet. And I think that if anything, you walked away believing that this woman could have been taken advantage of.
It's only day two, y'all.
But they also said people were leaving during, then people were snapping and sleeping. Was that true as
people
well?
felt like the prosecution was taking too long to get to the gut punch. That's how people felt, because they spent so much time on their history, on why she didn't do this. They kept asking her a lot of the same questions about the drugs they were taking. But what I think that the prosecution was building is they were building character around this witness. So you have this pregnant woman that you're looking at, and she barely cried, right? I'm wrapping up right now.
And is she taking a stand today?
She's taking a stand again
Y'all do
today.
realize it's 8 weeks.
I'm just
It's
asking.
only day two.
I'm just asking because she's there. And what would
and we already had semen on the nipples.
We're gonna bring this
Now,
back
the
in.
semen on the nipples. What was the family's reaction? What was her husband's reaction? What was the courtroom's reaction when they said he liked semen on the nipples?
Let's talk about it.
We're gonna bring it back in the next hour, because there's a lot more. Well, wrapping up the freak offs, and then we're gonna go into we watched the video with Cassie in court yesterday. So that was another.
What video did you watch?
The video of the beating in the hotel.
Oh.
Those videos may not get played, but we'll talk about that.
All right.
For Charlemagne to be as old as he is very immature, in my opinion. And one thing that really annoys me is people making light of a serious situation. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're trying to explain something to someone and you're being serious about it, and they're trying to crack stupid jokes that aren't even funny, by the way. That's what Charlemagne does. He is so annoyed and idiotic, okay? He is just ridiculous. So anyway, let's go to this video of what Jonathon Oddi had to say, because I find it all so nefarious. Okay, please pay attention. All right. So, what do y'all think about all of that? Oh, so disgusting, honey. Now, I'm sorry, but I don't know why anybody would want to put up with that. That is outright disgusting, despicable. Okay. And then Cassie said that sometimes she would try to clean up the mess, as much as she could. But at the end of the day, those rooms were just ruined by the time they got through, honey. Absolutely horrendous. as far as I'm concerned. But hey, now here's the thing too. I feel like Diddy, you know, they reported yesterday, if you all remember, they had reported that Diddy was turned around in his seat. Okay, he literally turned around in his seat looking at Cassie when she walked in. And of course, she didn't give him any eye contact. But the fact that he turned around looking at her, I was thinking, you know, I wonder if he was trying to intimidate her or try to get her to feel some empathy or sympathy for him or something. I don't know, but I just thought that was interesting when they said that yesterday. Do you all remember that? He turned around and looked at her. And also the fact that the kids stayed there yesterday and listened to everything Cassie said, I wonder if they did that because they felt like they knew Cassie and were probably shocked that Cassie was saying those things about their father. I don't know. But so let's get into this video. The Jonathon Oddi, this is him speaking from a Miami jail. Okay. Hold on, here we go. Let me speed this up a little bit.
Talk now. Listen to this.
I felt bad because I got along well with her, and I think she's a decent person. And unfortunately, I had a suspicion that she was in a situation that she was in, but I wasn't sure. And now I understand what was going on in her life and what was happening.
Okay, can you all understand what he's saying? Because he has a very thick accent. Can you all, one's in the chat if you all can understand what he's saying. Elizabeth said Jonathan's creepy. Can you all understand what he's saying? This was someone he was with for over 10 years, so him looking is quite natural. Yeah, that is true, JL. You're right, beloved. Okay, so some of you all said you can't hear what he's saying. Okay, so hold on. I'm just going to put the video on the screen so you all can read, because I just noticed they have subtitles on here. Okay, which color y'all need? Okay, so let's start it over.
So in May of 2018, a man named Jonathon Oddi opened fire at Donald Trump's Miami golf course and was shot and arrested by police. Now, Oddi said that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode. That's where it gets interesting. Later, while being questioned by Florida authorities, Oddi brought up something totally unexpected. He claimed that he'd been a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. This video is courtesy of Real World Media. Take a look.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate, tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
So at the time, Oddi's story seemed too far-fetched to believe, but not anymore. And now, in an exclusive interview, Oddi opens up to News Nation senior producer Allison Weiner about his claims, beginning with why he's agreed to talk now. Listen to this.
The insurance industry made me choose between feeding my kids or keeping my car legal.
Hold on, beloveds. Before we get to that, let's get to these updates really quick. Hold on. Okay, so here we go. AUSA says, excuse me, AUSA says the defense has sent us a zip file of text messages. We're reviewing them before raising it. The judge says, I appreciate it. Okay, AUSA Comey says the defense has still not shown us exhibits they may use in cross-examination of Ms. Ventura. We're worried this will continue. Okay, so why isn't the defense showing them exhibits that they're going to use? Okay, they said they have not seen those, and they're going to use these when they cross-examine Cassie. So the prosecution is concerned about that. Now, okay, so AUSA says, we anticipate these witnesses being on cross-examination for multiple days. We need to speak with them about security and transportation. The judge says, Ms. Shapiro, can you draft something on a piece of paper, an instruction you would have me give? So Combs Ana Maria Estavio, this is Diddy's attorney. She's the one that's going to cross-examine Cassie today. She says, we're making several chains of text messages. They had these documents in their possession for 8 months before we got them. The judge says, we're here. We were told there's half a day left of direct. Could you give them at lunch? Okay, then Judge Subramaniam says, you don't have to put it in a letter. You can just email me the cases and I'll take a look at them. Okay, so then they say, are these judicial documents going into the public docket? How much is being left off the docket in this case? Okay, then the judge says, we have a witness waiting in the back. Produce them before the cross-examination starts. You can email me cases during the trial day. Let's get moving. Let's get Miss Ventura back. Witness is entering. The judge says, welcome back. Okay, so Cassie just entered. She's about to take the stand. Okay, this is going to be juicy today, y'all, because after all the information we got yesterday, there's no telling what we're going to hear today.
I felt bad because I got along well with her, and I think she's a decent person. And unfortunately, I had a suspicion that she was in a situation that she was in, but I wasn't sure. And now I understand what was going on in her life and what was happening. And him beating her up in the hotel shows me the type of individual he is, and confirms that everything that happened to me was true and correct and in line with his personality.
So he's speaking to us from a Miami jail now. Here is how Oddi says it all began for him.
I was a male, Chippendale, a model Chippendale, you could say. And they called me for a show they called me the agency that I work for to do a show. And then I went and did a show, and things led to them offering me more money to perform sexual acts. And that's it. That's how I basically got started. I get dressed like a police officer, I do a show, I do strip down, and then, they offer me some more money. They offer me some more money to do some extra stuff.
So Oddi did get specific about the extra stuff that he says Diddy wanted from him. And these specifics were consistent with what he told law enforcement during the 2014 interrogation. Here is how he describes the atmosphere and how frequently it happened.
Candles, sensual atmosphere, lights off. He would sit in a corner in a sofa, watch and masturbate. And he'd say, he'd tell her, give her instructions what to do to me. Perform oral sex, rub baby oil. Then he'd tell me rub baby oil, perform oral sex, and then have sex.
How many times did you have sex with Cassie?
Probably like 15 sessions.
And what did you get paid? How much?
It would be like 800 each time. Each end. But sometimes they'll call me twice. I'll leave, and then 3 hours later, they'll call me, come back.
The best way to attract high-ticket coaching clients is not to spend all your time and money on social media.
And so Oddi claimed that the sessions were drug-fueled and that his concern for both Cassie and himself led him to get one of their sessions on video. Listen to what he says about that.
Why did you decide to record or video?
Because after she passed out, I decided to record that. So in the event anything worse happens, like if she died, or anybody died, it will be on camera, it will be on video, what happened. So I wouldn't be responsible for any of that.
So you were beginning to worry about her doing drugs. I mean, like about her dying or him dying or somebody dying from the drugs, and that you would be held responsible. So you brought a video. You brought your phone?
No, I had a USB video memory stick done like spy shot, and I put it in a wallet on the table, in the living room table of the hotel I was staying at. I just filmed it, and had everything described, and it had her threatening me, but he was telling her what to say. We had an argument. When I left, I knew they were paranoid. So I wanted to guarantee my safety. So I texted him and said, hey, if anything happens to me, I got evidence I'm being with you. At the settlement table, there was a lot of irregularities, okay? Mm-hmm. It was my first settlement. So they brought me in, and Diddy had a t-shirt with two men in ski masks pointing, making gun signs, okay? Mm-hmm. And it was black and white, and it had a red frame, okay? But that's the way he operates. He communicates, threatening you, like saying, I'm going to have you killed.
So Oddi says to prevent the recording from going public, that's what he was just talking about, Diddy had him sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, in exchange for $5 million in hush money. This was in 2014. The Daily Mail ran a screenshot of what appears to be a signature page signed by Sean Combs and Oddi. We have not been able to obtain the document or verify its contents or authenticity, nor have we been able to verify the existence of the video that you heard him talking about. Now, according to Daily Mail's report, the timing coincided with a spending spree by Oddi of Florida real estate, and it also coincided with Oddi's divorce. His ex-wife tells the Daily Mail that she found out about his windfall only after their split.
Thank you. Good morning, Quincy. Do you have anything to say? Good morning.
Basically, the day the incidents happened at Trump National Doral, I had to take medication, and I'd been diagnosed bipolar, but I wasn't sure I was bipolar. And I had an episode, and basically I've been taking medication every day. I've been stable. I had no issues in jail. I had that excellent behavior in jail. I'm feeling ready to come out to society and be a productive member of society.
All right, so Oddi remains locked up in a Florida jail, still awaiting trial on charges of attempted murder, armed burglary, aggravated assault, and armed grand theft. Regarding the sex slave claims, we've reached out to Sean Diddy Combs' team for comment and have yet to hear back. And thank you to Allison Weiner for that interview. We'll continue to investigate all of that.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download.
Okay, so you all, that's a darn shame. So apparently during one of those freak-off sessions, Cassie passed out, and Jonathon said that he was concerned that if she died, if something happened to her, if anybody died from all of the rug use, that he wanted to make sure he was able to prove that he didn't do it, that he had nothing to do with it. So that's why he secretly recorded something, okay? He secretly recorded the session. Do y'all hear this? And yeah, he did say he was bipolar. He had a bipolar episode when he committed that shooting. Elizabeth said so he blamed it on bipolar because of the NDA. No, he's talking about the shooting at Trump's Doral Resort. That was due to his bipolar episode. That's what I thought he was talking about. Okay, Tara says, good morning, Queen. I watch you every morning from the bushes. Just wondered why Puff would choose Jonathon Oddi, considering him preferring BBC. I know, right? I was thinking the same thing, beloved. That is a good question, but here's what I think. There was did the S worker who testified the other day, I think that he said something about they preferred or they would ask for request black dancers, but at one point there wasn't one or something. I think they didn't have any. So probably if they didn't have any black dancers available or whatever, he would just take, pick from whatever was there, I guess. I mean, but Jonathon used to be in shape back in the day. I mean, look at him. He looks a hot mess now. Clearly he's lost his mind. But he was in shape back then. So I guess Diddy said he'll do. Tupac Shakur said, look at Oddi on that thumbnail. Exactly. He was looking like something back then. Okay, so anyway, Diddy's family pulled up at court. It's raining cats and dogs in New York today. So I'm going to go to the video of them pulling up. And then I'm going to get into these, I'm going to get into the updates because I have a few. Tara, thank you for your contribution to the channel, beloved, and thanks for your question. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. She says, good point, Queen. He was nice back in the day, though. Yeah, he did. You could tell he worked out and took care of himself. Now it's just apparent to me that he probably has mental health issues. But I was really surprised to hear from him because I have been wondering, like, where is this man? Because I actually was in a Zoom call when they had his court date one day. His attorney was there. Like twice I went and his attorney was there, but he never was. And I'm like, where is this man? How come they're not ever showing his face? So good to see that he's at least alive. Okay, so here we go.
Thank you. Good morning, Quincy. Do you have anything to say? Good morning. Sorry. How are you today? Good morning, Sean. Do you have anything to say this morning? Good morning. Anything to say this morning? Thank you. Good morning, Quincy. Do you have anything to say?
These people are something else, honey. These people are sharks. I mean, you can't even get out of your car good. Do you have anything to say this morning? Are you sorry? Do you want to apologize for your father? Like, get out of here. Okay, apologize for what? They don't even think their dad is guilty of any of this stuff. Okay, y'all know they don't. So anyway, I mean, why would they? It's their father. I'm talking about the girls specifically. And now the boys, they probably know Diddy didn't have that stuff because for some of them, they were right there, allegedly. Okay, so now let's get into some of these updates. It's about to get real crazy today. You guys, the stuff that we heard yesterday, I don't know what's going to go down today, but I'm going to tell y'all this. My insider told me that these elite folks be doing a whole lot of nefarious things. And I do know this because I told you all about that movie that's actually banned in certain countries. It's called 120 Days of Silo, where they talk about all these things they do with, bodily fluids and all kind of sick stuff. It was just disgusting. Okay, so anyway, enough about that. Okay, so Combs enters the courtroom for the third day of his testimony in his trial. Sean Diddy Combs entered the courtroom for the third day of his criminal federal trial. Cassie Ventura, his former girlfriend, is expected to continue her testimony today. Now he's wearing a cream sweater. Diddy, please stop with the sweaters. You're not fooling anyone. It's not working. We all know it's cap. Okay, he's trying to act like he's just like he's such a, one of those college prep students or something. Picture it, an old earth man like Diddy wearing polo button downs with sweaters. Yeah, no. So anyway, that worked for the Menendez boys back in 1989, Diddy. It's 2025 and you're 55 years old, okay? And after we saw the video of you dragging Cassie by the hair, honey, we know you are not nice and sweet. Okay, I don't even know why they tried it with Diddy. He should have just come in a Marnie suit and some Gucci flats or slip-ons because he can't have shoes with laces. So anyway, he's wearing a cream sweater, white colored short, and gray pants. Oh, I'm sorry, white colored shirt and gray pants. Okay. And he says, "How are you?" to the members of the media seated in the row behind him. Diddy, stop trying to come into court, you know what I'm saying? Trying to brown nose with everybody. He told the pregnant journalist the other day, asked her, "How was she?" "How are you?" "Sir, none of your business. Go sit in the corner, okay? And wait till we have time to say something to you." Then now he's sitting there looking at Cassie, looking all around at people, you know, nodding at the jurors. Did y'all hear about that? Sitting there nodding at the jurors. Diddy, they know what you're up to. He was trying to build a rapport with them. They, the inkwell said no, Prada, because the devil wears Prada. You all are nefarious, okay? Mel said, "Got to give the jurors a good impression." Honey, after they saw that video of him dragging Cassie by the hair, I don't think that's going to work. Okay, but listen, but the thing is, it's like they know what you're doing. Okay, you don't think that if the jury knows that you're on trial for all these nefarious things, facing 15 to life, and you're sitting up there nodding at them as they come in, like, please, okay, just sit there and mind your business, Diddy, okay, and wait for the gavel to fall. So anyway, his family had not entered the courtroom yet. Okay, now we know that they have. Okay, so Sean Diddy Combs' son. His sons, Justin, Quincy, and King, have arrived along with their other family members. CNN did not see the daughters who have been in court for the past 2 days. They probably are not coming today. After hearing that stuff they heard yesterday, they're probably like, this is enough. Okay, the family has been arriving in a black Mercedes van, and the daughters did not appear to get out of that car today. Okay, so now the jury will be brought in soon. The trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs has resumed for day 3 testimony. The government's third witness, Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, is expected to continue her testimony Wednesday. She has been on the stand for just over 4.5 hours so far. The attorneys are in court to discuss matters, and the jury is expected to be brought in at 9:30 a.m. Okay, for the start of the testimony. Okay, so they're already in. Now, the lawyers argue about text messages evidence ahead of the testimony today. So the parties are arguing over text message threads between Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura that the defense might want to submit as evidence during Ventura's cross-examination later today. Now, prosecutor Maureen Comey said the defense should have given notice to the government about the exhibits much sooner. Combs' defense attorneys are arguing they've been pulling possible exhibits to respond to Ventura's direct testimony as it progresses. Okay, so here's the thing. They likely have so many text messages, they don't want to have to go through all of them in court. And so what they have been doing is, it sounds like as Cassie gets on the stand and testifies to things, they're going to find text messages going through the thread to find text messages that debunk or contradict what she is now saying. So that's what it sounds like to me. And so they say Judge Aaron Subramanian hasn't made a ruling yet, and the jury is not yet in the room. So we'll see if they're going to be able to use it. Now, the judge says defense team should turn over evidence before cross-examination. Judge Aaron Subramanian said they should give turn the information, okay, before they start their cross-examination of Cassie Ventura. Okay, and which is likely later today. Subramanian said prosecutors should have brought up the issue sooner. Okay, so he's going in on the prosecutors, not the defense. He's just telling them, listen, just give it to us, turn it in before. Okay, just make sure they get it before the cross-exam. But actually, prosecutors, y'all should have complained about this sooner. Okay, the jury will enter momentarily. Now, Cassie Ventura, the former girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs and one of his accusers, is on the stand for the second day of her testimony. Ventura has testified for just over 4.5 hours so far. Now, the prosecution said in court Tuesday they expect to finish direct examination today, but will need at least half the day. Okay, the jury entered the room. So they're going to need half the day. So after about maybe 4 hours, when they take a break, hopefully when they come back from the break, that's when the defense will start the cross-examination. Okay, that's what I want to hear. That's what I'm waiting on. Okay, so, okay, jury just entered the courtroom. Okay, let me see if there's any updates on this. Okay, so we're still waiting. Hold on, let me share this screen. I've noticed the defense has been having a lot of late-minute requests, says Tequila. You think so? I hadn't really noticed other than this one. I mean, I guess they may have, but it's usually contingent upon what the prosecution is doing. Oh my goodness, I am so done. D Hood really said P. Diddy is disgusting. You know what? Listen, here's the thing. Is that why he called himself P. Diddy? Like now I have to wonder, because didn't y'all always wonder where he got the P from? Right? This is all nefarious. He literally is P. Diddy. That's crazy. Thank you for your contribution to the channel, beloved. Peace, love, and blessings, honey. Y'all need to stop. Hold on. I'm digging up another video for you all. Okay, so while we're waiting for updates, beloveds, we're going to listen to the last edition of Burden of Proof. Okay, we watched on this the other day, Burden of Proof, the case against Sean, or the case against Diddy. Okay, so let's check that out.
Good evening. I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. It's day 2 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, and the prosecution's star witness, his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura, taking the stand. The disturbing video of Diddy and Cassie in an LA hotel hallway, one of the sparks that really ignited this case. Today, for the first time in 6 years, Cassie coming face to face with Diddy, telling the jury in graphic detail about what they say is the
You all, isn't that court sketch artist just ghastly? That's like the worst sketch artist I have ever seen. Okay, please pay attention. It's just awful.
darker side of the rap mogul over the span of their 10-year relationship. Cassie admitting she was young and initially wanted to make him happy by fulfilling his sexual desires, but quickly became reluctant. Ventura says the freak-offs took up so much of her time, it felt like a full-time job. When she didn't cater to Combs' desires, he became violent and abusive, bashing and stomping her head at times. In the courtroom, hearing the explicit details of these sexual escapades, Combs' mother and children back for a second day in a row. Prosecutors argue Combs used power and fame to lead a criminal enterprise for 2 decades to allegedly abuse, threaten, and force women into drug-fueled sex marathons that lasted for days. He strongly denies all of these allegations. If convicted, Combs could face life in prison, a stark contrast to the life of luxury he's known for. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. We'll take you inside the courtroom in just a moment for the emotional testimony, and we'll also take a closer look at Cassie Ventura, the singer and now star witness, on the stand.
Okay, so let's get into these updates first, beloveds. Okay, I have 3 more. Okay, so prosecutor Emily Johnson is clarifying a few points from Cassie Ventura's testimony from yesterday. Now, she circled back to an incident that Ventura testified to, where she recalled a time that Sean Diddy Combs and his security personnel packed up and drove away after learning his rival, Marion Suge Knight, was nearby. Johnson asked Ventura to clarify what they packed up. She says they got dressed and quickly packed up guns that were in the safe. They put them on their bodies, Ventura said. Ventura yesterday described how she and Combs were having a freak off at one of his homes in Los Angeles when one of his security guards came in and mentioned that Knight was at a diner nearby. Now, Cassie already testified to this yesterday, but she's just, clarifying some of what she said. Okay, so prosecutors are again playing in the 2016, or they're again playing the 2016 hotel surveillance footage for the jury. So do you all see this? They're playing this hotel footage again. And you heard Lauren from the Breakfast Club said that they rewound it back, I think at least 2 or 3 times yesterday. The part where Diddy was dragging her back, like trying to make her stay. So anyway, they played the surveillance video again. Johnson is walking Cassie Ventura through moments of the video after Sean Diddy Combs dragged her out of the elevator lobby. Johnson played part of the surveillance video that shows Combs entering the elevator lobby and walking toward Ventura. The two are then off camera before Combs walks away. Ventura noted that when Combs walked away, her phone was in her hands. "He took all my stuff," she said. So prosecutor Emily Johnson clarified with Cassie Ventura that she was referring to the altercation in the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016 when she said yesterday that she did not fight back against ex-boyfriend Sean Diddy Combs. In general, throughout the relationship, Ventura said there were times she did try to fight back when Combs hit her. She said she did so more in the beginning of their relationship. She said, "I learned that it could escalate the fight more and make it worse for myself," she said. When she fought back, she said it would make him more violent, make him stronger, make him want to push me harder in that situation. Okay, well, so did he show the tape, says JL. Well, the tape of the video of Diddy beating her, they showed that. But as far as the videos, the freak-offs, they're setting up to show that today. Okay, because they said that they're putting up screens or whatever because they don't want everybody in the court to be able to see it. So they're going to show those today, at least some of them.
Let's go to Aaron Katursky. He was inside the courtroom for all of it, and he joins me now from Lower Manhattan. Aaron, this was the first time that Cassie Ventura and her ex, Sean Combs, have seen each other since 2018. What was that moment like in the courtroom?
When she walked into the room, Sean Combs appeared to look at her, but she, Eva, did not seem to look at him. And during her testimony, I'm not sure she really made eye contact with Sean Combs. She turned occasionally to her husband, Alex Fine, who was seated in the courtroom. She had other members of her family, her attorney there in support. But she recounted such graphic detail, too graphic for us to discuss here now, in such soft-spoken, matter-of-fact tones, describing degrading sexual activity that she said Sean Combs forced her into, starting when she was 22 years old, and as she called herself, naive, too naive, she said, to really understand what was going on or understand the power dynamics in the relationship. Because she said, if it turned him on, that's what they did. Her preferences weren't at all considered. And she said she was passed around and objectified by men, and with other men she didn't want to be having sex with, on Sean Combs's whim, describing how he wanted to set up recording equipment to record these freak-offs. She said it made me feel insane. She said it was humiliating and disgusting.
Aaron, Cassie shared that she didn't have a whole lot of sexual experience before she met Diddy. She was only 19 when she met them. There's a nearly 2 decades age difference between these two. Talk more about that power dynamic and how their relationship changed over time.
Well, she was 19 and a young singer, and Combs signed her to a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Records, so a long-term deal. And she said, Eva, that she only made 1 album. Otherwise, the freak-offs took up so much of her time that it stifled her music career, but it controlled her financially, she said. So she felt like her livelihood, her career, her life really depended on Sean Combs and keeping him happy. Otherwise, she said she feared what might happen. Now, interestingly, she talked a lot about not wanting him to break up with her. Now, whether that was because she thought he might get violent or because she would lose some of the life that she had acquired, she didn't really say. But we know that the defense is expected to argue that, sure, Sean Combs and Cassie had a toxic, violent relationship. The defense has called her a strong, adult woman who made a voluntary choice.
Aaron, you were in that courtroom. These details were a lot. What was the jury's reaction hearing her testimony?
It's really hard to read the jury. Most of them are pretty stone-faced. There was one woman who did seem to be following along. She would occasionally smirk at the mention of baby oil or lubricant, which was used so frequently that, as Ventura described it, the hotel rooms where these freak-offs occurred were left in complete disarray. There was candle wax and oil everywhere. But most of the jurors sat stone-faced, listening to what amounts to the humiliating recollection of a decade's worth of a woman's sex life.
Aaron, what can we expect to see in court tomorrow?
More of the same. Cassie Ventura ended her testimony today, taking jurors to a moment they've already seen video of, what happened in the Los Angeles hotel in March of 2016. The jury had already seen the video, but they saw it again with Cassie narrating it, saying, "That's me," pointing to herself on video and telling the jury this was the first and only time she tried to escape a freak-off before Sean Combs declared it over. She said she got hit by Combs, she had a black eye, and she wanted to leave. But when she tried to, as the jury saw in video, he dragged her back.
Aaron Couture.
Can y'all imagine that, trying to escape a freak-off? Honey, please pay attention. It's all nefarious, okay? All nefarious. Now, I'm going to go back to that in just a second, but I'm going to go to this live outside the courthouse, because this looks like they're showing when, I don't know if this is Diddy's kids. You all can see it better than that other version I showed you.
Good morning. How you feeling? Good morning. How are you doing?
Okay, so y'all saw that. Y'all see how Miss Combs coming up in there with her little cowboy hat on? So let's go back to the video. Okay, Stephanie says, are they using her testimony to prove RICO? That's what they're supposed to be doing, honey. She's the star witness, so they're trying to use her testimony to prove their entire case, basically. Okay, their entire case is hinges on Cassie's testimony. Okay, let's go back to the other video. Just anticipate said cowboy Janice Carter. You all are something else.
For us there at the courthouse, Aaron. Thank you so much. And let's break all of this testimony down and what it means for this case with ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer. You were also in the courtroom. This testimony, I mean, the details of this testimony from a legal standpoint, what stood out to you?
So from a legal standpoint, there are a few quotes that I want to look at that I think kind of run the gambit of what we're talking about here. We have Cassie Ventura here and some of her quotes saying here, after the freak off, the room was pretty bad off, the candle wax, the all over the place. And then she described it as having a pungent smell. And she brought us into those rooms in a way that made us think no one wants to be in there.
Did y'all hear that? So she described the rooms as having a pungent smell. I told y'all, she said it was musty and smelled like B.O., honey. Ugh. Please pay attention. Oh, gross.
The only way you can be in there is to be compelled. I think that fed into the government's argument of coercion. But we also heard something that I think the defense is going to jump on, where she talked about that she was insanely jealous. And we remember from Tenny Garagos, she said that this case was about love, infidelity, jealousy, and money. And so I think something like this, Sean Combs professing to be a man of many women and Cassie potentially being jealous and maybe starting some of those fights or participating in the fights, that's something the defense is going to jump on. And then, of course, this, saying that she's super young and naive, people pleaser, getting her personality. I think her testimony really drove home the idea that this was a horrible interaction, that it was a toxic relationship, as Aaron is quoting the defense. But also, I think there's something that both sides will be able to use from her testimony, that she was trafficked, as the government is arguing, but also that this could just be a domestic violence case where the defense might be able to argue not these crimes, other crimes he's guilty of, maybe not guilty of trafficking and racketeering.
She also talked at some length about the control that he had over her and the other people on his staff that helped participate in that. Why do you think that was so important?
All right, so I think the smart thing to do, like start off, is talking about Cassie's age. She's 38 years old now. Sean Combs is 55. The age gap was one thing they touched on. The fact that she was his singer and signed onto his label as a singer, and she had done some modeling in the past, and that he had the ability to control whether or not her music got out. We also saw the testimony about who was in his inner circle. We saw her talk about bodyguards and chief of staff. And to Aaron's point, she was very matter-of-fact and soft-spoken when she spoke, but what I saw when she talked about those bodyguards and saw pictures of them, it was almost like she started to tremble in her voice a little. You can see a sense of fear as she recounted who the people were, where if she didn't pick up the phone right away, someone would come and find her. And I think that really colored the idea of this criminal enterprise.
Again, you were in the courtroom today. What was the jury's reaction hearing all of this?
I think as they continue to watch, you saw some people feverishly taking notes in the back, but I think as the testimony continued in, everyone was really leaning in, listening. They were somewhat stoic. I didn't see anyone really like jaw-dropping about some of these allegations. Of course, you saw some people, as we see in the reports, shaking their head as to some of these statements because they were very, very horrible and hard to listen to at times.
At the very beginning of the day, we heard from a male escort that testified that he saw Combs attack Cassie. What stood out to you about his testimony?
Yeah, and so Xavier Donaldson was a defense attorney who continued the cross-examination. And what stood out to me is I think they're still kind of attacking this strategy of attacking the credibility as well as the idea of consent here. And so from there were two things. One, Daniel Phillip, said that he actually had feelings towards Cassie. And there might have been, again, this issue of jealousy that I think the defense tried to hone in on. But of course, the government came back and talked about just the brutality of Sean Combs' interaction with Cassie, the directing of the sexual encounters, who got paid, how they got paid, and then again, just the brutality of the interaction that he saw with them.
Brian Buckmeyer, thank you so much. We'll come back to you in just a little bit. Cassie Ventura's testimony today detailing graphic allegations of domestic violence, which she says she experienced while dating Sean Combs, violence that the defense admitted to in opening statements. To talk more about domestic violence, let's bring in criminal defense attorney and ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona, who has handled sex crime cases, and former NYPD sex crimes detective Sarah Mathers, who also notably worked on the Harvey Weinstein investigation. Thank you both so much for joining with us. Bernardo, let's start with you. The defense admitted in opening statements that Combs got violent, but say that doesn't mean he was trafficking people. So does the violence matter here?
The violence absolutely matters here, because it's the violence is what actually quieted Cassie as to not say anything for all those years. Look how long it took her to finally say something. And that's a common issue that you see with domestic violence victims, with sexual assault victims, because it takes them a long time, number one, to realize that they were victimized, and two, to have the courage to come forward and actually to speak to other people about what happened to them. But three, look what happens behind closed doors. You just never know what happens behind closed doors. So this violence, this her being scared, is all a part of the violence and the crimes that took place here, and what the prosecution is moving forward in front of this jury piece by piece.
Sarah, you've investigated a lot of cases. How does violence factor into these types of situations?
Well, I think this shows just what Sean Combs was capable of, and it just shows the toxicity that was surrounding Cassie Ventura in her life. I think being a man of power and having the financial means that he had, and having the control over her, I think that all just led into this whole situation where now she has the strength to stand up in court and to speak her mind and state the facts and tell everyone what happened. And she is strong, and she was a victim, and now she's able to, speak up for herself and show the world that she's strong and that she's able to come over this and excel in her life and move on.
Bernardo, we saw text messages between Cassie and Diddy today. The defense has already said they think the messages show the consensual nature of their relationship. I'm curious, though, what's your reaction to those text messages?
So when Cassie was testifying about the text messages, she also put it into context as to why she sent those text messages, what was going on in her mind, that she wanted to satisfy Sean Combs, that she wanted to be a part of this, in the sense of that she was scared that if she didn't participate, what would happen to her. These are also common signs of people that are domestic violence victims, that are sexual assault victims that you see. We're ultimately going to see later on during the trial an expert come in and testify as to how and why victims like these react the way they do and are capable to send these texts that may look consensual to other people, but when you break it down mentally, you're able to see that this is a victim, a person that is broken, a person that has been tainted, a person that has been brainwashed as a result of the violence and the control that Sean Combs had over her.
Sarah, Cassie didn't come forward until 2023 with her civil suit, years after this relationship ended. In your experience, why do victims wait to come forward?
Well, every victim's story is different, and some victims respond to trauma differently. And with this situation, maybe just out of fear, like I said, he had full control over her, full control of her financially, and just based on her reputation, society, the emotional aspects, the psychological aspects that she's had to deal with. So these things take time, and she's doing it now, and she should be proud of herself, and we'll see how this pans out.
Sarah Mathers, Bernardo Villalona, thank you both for being with us. Still ahead, the prosecution versus the defense, the strategy from both sides when it comes to Cassie's testimony, and the portrait they're trying to paint of Sean Diddy Combs. We'll be right back.
All right, you all, let's get into some of the updates. Okay, so let's get into some more of these updates. I swear I'm losing my voice. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go to multiple sources. You may hear some of the stuff more than once, but usually there's different information or extra information given by some people. Okay, so this is, let me see here, 18 minutes ago. AUSA says, now who's in the video? Ventura said, me and security. AUSA says, is this one play from 531? Where did you go from the hotel? Ventura said, to my house. I took an Uber. Now, this is her interrogating her about the the incident at the hotel, where she went once she left there. So she said she took an Uber to her house. AUSA says, now let's turn to text messages. Can you read page 4? Ventura said, please call. I'm surrounded. Okay, so that's what the text message says. Okay, then AUSA said, who sent that? Ventura says, from Sean. He was running around in a towel. I told him to put the robe on. AUSA says, who sent these green messages? Ventura says, I wrote to Sean. Jules left. As long as you're quiet, you can stay. Peace. So AUSA says, who was Jules? Cassie says, an escort. Now, remember, Jules was one of Cassie's favorites as far as the escorts were concerned. Okay. AUSA says, who was at your home when you got there? Ventura says, Carrie Morgan. She was upset when she saw me. She called the police. AUSA said, did you speak with them? Ventura says, yes, but I didn't say who I was talking about, and they left. AUSA says, why? Ventura said, I wasn't ready. AUSA says, did Sean try to come to your apartment? Ventura says, yes, he was banging. That was pretty normal for him, but this is a pretty private building. AUSA says, did you hear from Miss Coran that day? Now remember, Christina Coran, that's the one that was Diddy's chief of staff, who's been accused of setting up the freak-offs and also wiring the money to the S workers. Okay, so she says, did you hear from Miss Coran that day? She said, or Miss Coran that day. She says, yes. And I went to see D-Rock and his wife to try to feel safe. So D-Rock's clearly one of Diddy's friends. Okay, she said she went to go see them to try to feel safe. Okay, so now let me go to this other. See if I got any updates on here. Okay, so hold tight for more updates. Let's keep listening to this. In the meantime, I'm going to check some other sources.
This is Pod 5, the first fully immersive sleep system. Intelligent.
Welcome back to ABC News Live, day 2 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. His ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, taking the stand, revealing never before heard details about days-long drug-fueled sexual encounters with prostitutes. Cassie saying if she refused to participate, Combs became violent and that the freak-offs became a job where there was no space to do anything else but to recover and just try to feel normal again. Our ABC News legal contributors, Brian Buckmeyer and Bernardo Villalona, are back with us. We're going to have y'all take sides today. Brian, you're the defense. Bernardo, you're the prosecution. Brian, let's start with you. If you were the defense attorney sitting there hearing all of these details, what are you thinking?
If I'm the defense, I'm actually not that worried because in a case like this, they've already conceded that there is allegations of domestic abuse and violence. And I'm waiting to see the government make the connection between this is simply a man and a woman, especially a man, because we're hearing the violence from Sean Combs onto Cassie, just brutally abusing her, hitting her, all the things that we said were indefensible. But we're not seeing the connection of was this force used to compel her to go across state lines for trafficking?
Okay, so do any of you guys think that this is given trafficking thus far? Do any of you all see how this is making a connection to trafficking? Okay, Lisa says, isn't D-Rock a producer, honey? I have no idea. I don't know these people, honey. Could be. If he's around Diddy, he likely is somebody in the music industry. Okay, so is anybody feeling that this is giving trafficking? Because to me, I'm just getting domestic violence. I mean, they can spin it however they want and talk about Diddy was doing this, that, and the third, but all this crap just sounds like domestic violence and some idiot who just gets angry, loses control, and wants everything to go his way. And we've seen Diddy, throw these temper tantrums and talk about he gets what he wants and all of that. So that's to be expected, but this is not giving trafficking. I'm gonna need them to amp it up and get to the part where they're proving this RICO, okay? Because all this stuff, and here's the thing. So another thing is, my source was telling me on yesterday that, or last night, shall I say, that the prosecutor who was asking Cassie all the questions yesterday was really asking her some questions that really didn't seem to have too much validity. You know what I'm saying? Just asking stuff that really was kind of irrelevant. But I said, well, maybe she was trying to, give background or give more context to it or whatever. But she said she almost fell asleep, that it was just like boring. The jury just looked like they weren't engaging in it, like they just weren't feeling it, because she was just, the line of questioning was not good. Okay, that's what she said yesterday. And did Lauren say on the Breakfast Club, did Lauren say who she thought won the round yesterday? Did she say the prosecution? James Allen said, no, it's given S worker. I mean, yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm still not seeing where the trafficking's coming in. Okay. DJ Big Six said, yeah, like I said, I'm bored. Right. Renee says, I see no proof of S trafficking. It's just proof Cassie nasty as hell. I mean, that they all are just nasty. Ugh, okay? All of them. Cassie, Diddy, the S workers, like, honey, it's no way. It's just no way for me. Okay. Okay. Star Child said, Lauren said prosecution. Okay. Yes, she did say that. That's what I thought. Now, I wasn't there, but just from the information we got on yesterday and just from what my source said and a couple of other people I've heard talk about it, I don't think the prosecution did a great job yesterday. I mean, you could say, I guess, because Cassie got up there and told about the freak offs and all that stuff, but that still is not proving their point for me. And then also, the prosecution, I don't know. It just seems like this is just half-assed to me. I'm sorry. It's just not given that they have hardcore evidence and facts. It seems like they're taking what they have, what little bit they have, and just trying to stretch it. Okay, like they're just trying to use it to make it fit the pattern of what they want. But it's not working right now. I'm not saying that it won't eventually, but right now it's just not given what they're accusing this man of. Okay, and I'm not saying Diddy didn't do any of this stuff, but at the end of the day, that's not what it's given. Okay. That's just not what it's given. Not for me. It just sounds like somebody that's had a very bad temper and a very salacious appetite for sex. Somebody who's just a whole freak. And also think about all of the rugs they were doing and all the alcohol they were doing. Of course, they're going to be acting crazy. And then Diddy already has a violent temper, just like his defense team said, or Mark Garrigo said, that Diddy has a violent temper. And then he said, you mix that with alcohol and rugs. Okay. So, yeah, DJ Big Six said grasping at straws. I mean, that's really what it's given. I know some of these people that are for Cassie are going to be mad about it. I'm for Cassie too, but at the end of the day, it's just not adding up to what it needs to be, in my opinion. Okay, and Gwendolyn, beloved, thank you. Says, thank you, Queen, for all your hard work. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay. Ice Kid said, Diddy looking like a win then. I don't know if he's going to win, but I'm just saying it's just not, so far, they're not doing the best. And this is the star witness. So hopefully today, the testimony today will give more insight and do more to prove what they have accused Diddy of. Because right now it's just not adding up for me. That's just how I feel about it.
Or was it simply a man who was a voyager who liked to participate in these sexual escapades that we may not agree with, but in the course of that, he used violence. So I'm looking to try to slice this with a scalpel rather than come in with a hammer and just kind of pick the case apart little by little.
Bernardo, how do you think the prosecution did today? What are they trying to do here?
So the prosecution is definitely laying out a picture, a story of the life of Cassie with Sean Combs, and especially the violent nature of it, but then the sexual nature of it. And I think what they're doing is piece by piece, they're laying out all these freak off moments. And now they're starting to get to the nitty gritty part, meaning the most extreme ones, the ones that shock the conscience. For example, when she mentioned that Sean Combs would have her participate in these freak offs when she was on her menstrual cycle. I think that right there shocks the conscience, and the prosecution did a great job in ending with that line of questioning to show the jury that, look, this is not just domestic violence. This is not just people having consensual sex. This is the type that no one will want to engage in.
And Brian, the defense has admitted that Combs had non-traditional sexual preferences. Cassie at one point was on the stand flipping through a binder of escorts that they used. We can't even say out loud some of the things that occurred on this show. Do you think the defense can really convince this jury that Cassie and these other alleged victims wanted this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that you can take any of these allegations and say, of course Cassie wanted to do, and again, go and read it, because some of the things we're not allowed to repeat, but the brutality, the coercion, the arguments, the slapping, the dehumanization of what allegedly happened to her, I don't think anyone's going to turn around and say, well, that's just abnormal sexual encounters. But I think the defense can sidestep it and say, yes, that's a crime. You know what we call that? Rape, abuse, sexual assault. Look at the indictment and see if any of those are listed in the indictment. They're not. And I think the defense is going to try to sidestep them and say, where's the trafficking? Where were these allegations used to traffic her? Where's the criminal enterprise, and not just an inner circle or an organization of Sean Combs?
Yeah, here's the thing for me. So it seems to me that the prosecution is definitely grasping at straws here. Okay, when they talk about Diddy had this entire criminal enterprise, and then when Cassie was on the stand, she's talking about the security was doing this, and then the assistants would do this. That's what they're trying to use. You know, they're trying to use those people to say that it was a criminal enterprise. Okay, those people are just workers. What are you going to do to prove? This is what I'm anxious to see. How are they going to prove that these people actually were all together, collectively working to be as trafficking and having a whole RICO organization? Well, how are they going to connect all these dots? I'm just really anxious to see this, because I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it.
To help facilitate him getting from point A to point B and doing the things that he likes, even though they're state crimes and not federal crimes. So I think they're going to try to sidestep it and argue somewhere else.
Bernard, I have to ask you about these details. The prosecutor is literally asking her about every little thing, down to what these rooms looked and smelled like after these freak-offs, the number of baby oil bottles used each time. Why do you think these details matter here?
So, Eva, the devil is in the details. When you're determining credibility, when you're determining believability, you want the witness to try to give you as much details as possible to determine whether that person is telling the truth. So that's why the prosecution is heavily focusing on these details, because in the end, this case rises and falls on the testimony of Cassie Ventura. And in order for the jury to find her credible and believable, they have to look at her testimony, as well as her demeanor, as well as anything that corroborates her testimony, and evaluate all of that to determine, in fact, whether Sean Combs is guilty of these crimes. So the devil's in the details, so they have to get it out.
Brian, as a defense attorney, how do you handle a cross with a witness like Cassie without taking off the jury?
Personally, I don't do it. I think I would first hire someone like Bernardo Villalona, and I think that defense is doing something very similar to that. One of the women attorneys are going to cross-examine Cassie Ventura for a number of reasons. One, this is a woman making allegations of sexual assault on that of a man, and two, she is pregnant. The optics of that would look horrible if someone like me does this. But
okay, isn't that what I told you guys? Isn't that exactly what I told y'all? Please pay attention, honey. I told you all that the optics, it would not look good if a man is cross-examining Cassie. Okay, I also told you it's going to be a problem for Diddy when she walks in there with that big stomach. She's all pregnant and everything, looking all nice and sweet, innocent. Okay, at the end of the day. So yes, they're going to have Diddy's attorney, Ana Maria Estavio, is going to be cross-examining Cassie. Now, she's kind of I think she might be the one with the least experience on the team. So that's interesting that they chose her rather than Nicole Westmoreland or Tini Garagos. I was really shocked, because I was definitely expecting that if they did get a woman to do it, that it would be Tini Garagos. That's what I was thinking. But they got this lady. I want to hear what she has to say, because I think she's the one that's the least experienced, if I'm not mistaken.
I think the other aspect of it from a technical standpoint, very careful. Don't raise your voice. Don't get into an argument. Be as soft-spoken and careful as her, but be deliberate in your words and trying to say, you said this one day, and now you're saying this another day. So which one is it? Don't get into a battle with her, because you're not going to look good doing so.
Brian Buckmeyer, Bernardo Villalona, thank you both for being with us. Coming up, who is Cassie Ventura? A closer look at her time as an emerging star in the spotlight, to the star witness in the case against Diddy. Stay with us.
Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought to yourself, wow, I thought I'd be further along, I'd be better off than I am right now? Have you had those?
Let me tell you something. I'm going to say something that nobody probably wants to say, but I believe it's absolutely true. Here's the thing. Some people ask, why did Cassie stay with Diddy? Why did she allow him to make her do those things? And why did she do them? You know, and she said because she loved Diddy, she wanted to stay with him and all this, that, and the third. Here's the thing. I don't think it's, I think she loved Diddy. Yeah, she probably did. But at the end of the day, we all know why Cassie was really there. Diddy was a billionaire. Okay. She loved the lavish lifestyle. She loved the fact that Diddy was powerful, that Diddy knew all of these different people, these other A-list celebrities. Diddy knew politicians, even presidents. Diddy was the man. That's why she was with Diddy. And we all know it. Everyone needs to stop, cut the cap, and stop tap dancing and tiptoeing around the truth of the matter. Cassie was with Diddy because he was a rich, powerful man that had all of these connections, and he was the toast of the town, given the keys to the city and all of that, at private jets, and y'all know it. Okay, let's just not sit here and play these games, because here's the truth of the matter. If this had been some regular black man who didn't have money, worked a 9 to 5 at FedEx or whatever, do y'all think Cassie would have allowed herself to do any of the things just because that's what he wanted? Of course not. Okay, you know, my grandmother used to tell us that when you're a kept woman, she would always say, make sure, you know, even if you're dating a man with money, make sure that you always have your own money, because when you become a kept woman, you're going to pay for every bit of it. Okay? That's what she said. So at the end of the day, you know, some of these young women, their mothers and grandmothers don't talk to them and school them on real life things. Okay. And then they see somebody with all this money and power, and they just get head over heels and just get so, you know, get starstruck. Okay. And all of that, because they want to live in the glitz and the glamour. And then they're willing to do anything and sacrifice themselves and so much of themselves and who they are, just so they can live a certain lifestyle. But it comes at a cost. Okay, it comes at a very high cost. And you know, most men that have reached billionaire status, of course, they're going to be controlling, because they know that they can get whatever they want. And they know they can get whatever woman they want. And at the end of the day, if they tell you, I want you, a request for you to do certain things, you know that if you don't, they'll just go find somebody that will. So some people will absolutely compromise themselves just to fit in, just to keep this person, just to be tied to a certain lifestyle. And that's just what it is. And that's why Cassie stayed there for 10 years. Okay, let's just keep it a buck. Now, some people want to tiptoe around and act like, oh, you know, she was just, you know, Diddy just did her so dirty and she was trying to have a record deal. He was holding over her head. Well, here's the thing. Diddy isn't the only producer. He wasn't the only record label owner. Okay, at the end of the day, if you are that desperate or you want to have a career that badly, okay, that you're willing to go through all of that stuff. I mean, at what point did you realize that Diddy's just using you? Because Diddy was using Cassie. Let's talk about it. He was really using Cassie. I'm not going to say he didn't care about her, but he was not in love with Cassie. No man could be in love with a woman and watch them do those things that Cassie describes what she had to do. Okay, no man's going to sit there. I bet you he didn't never ever make Kim Porter do nothing like that. I bet you Kim Porter wouldn't even, if he asked her to, of course. But I'll guarantee you he probably never even asked her to do such a thing. Okay, I guarantee you he would never. Okay, but Cassie and young Miami and these young women that he was dealing with, he probably knew he could talk them into it. He could manipulate them, because I believe that Diddy is in fact a master manipulator. Okay, I believe that he knows how to get what he wants out of women, but there's some women who are not going to put up with this BS. And see, Kim Porter had her own career. She was a supermodel. Okay, so she had her own things going for her. So she didn't have to sit there and depend on Diddy for his money, because she made her own. But when you're somebody, you don't really have things together for yourself, and you have stars in your eyes, and you're trying to get a career and all of this, and you run into somebody like Diddy, I could see how she got caught up in the whirlwind, okay, of trying to live this footloose and fancy-free lifestyle, not knowing what it was going to cost her in the end. And I bet you, in hindsight, looking back down the road at what happened and all that transpired, she probably realizes now that she was a whole lot better off and a whole lot happier with Ryan Leslie. Okay, with Ryan Leslie. He seems like a nice and decent person. But you know, some women love the bad boys until the bad boy turns out to be Diddy, who's not just a bad boy for life. He's actually the devil himself. Okay, please pay attention.
Welcome back. Cassie Ventura is the star witness in this case against Sean Diddy Combs. But before all this, she once shined as an up-and-coming singer who had a recording contract with Diddy's label, Bad Boy Records. Tonight, a look at Cassie, who she was and is. For that, we turn to our Kelly Carter, who covers entertainment and pop culture for us. Kelly, take us back to 2006 when her first album was released and Cassie was just starting to make a name for herself.
Who was Cassie Ventura?
Yeah, you know, let's go back even a little bit further to really put her into context, because in 2004, you have Sierra dropping her debut album. In 2005, Rihanna drops her debut album. 2006, Cassie comes around and drops her debut album. And really, the landscape was very ripe for R&B pop princesses to kind of take over. And she really, it looked as if she was going to fit quite nicely along what we were hearing on the radio and what we were seeing in music videos. She was discovered by Ryan Leslie, who is a songwriter who has written hits for people like Beyonce, Britney Spears, and of course, Sean Combs. And it seemed as if all of the ingredients were there for her to fit quite nicely in this scope of the R&B music scene from young women.
So it sounds like she was such a promising young start. What happened here?
You know, what happened is we kept waiting for more music to come. You know, when that first album came out, it lived on the top 20 for a couple of weeks, but then it was like nothing. You know, what you've been hearing a lot in today's testimony is that she signed this 10 album deal with Bad Boy Records, but only one album came out. And for the longest time, people kept waiting to hear more, see more, what was going to become of her, because we saw her on red carpets, right? And then we had to wait about 6 years after that debut album from her dropped to get her on a Nicki Minaj track. And I thought maybe that was going to, you know, bring some new music from her. We kept hearing Sean talk about how she was constantly in the studios working with producers, but we really weren't hearing any new music and certainly no new albums.
Cassie, as we have been able to see, is very pregnant right now, about to have her third baby. What more do we know about her life now?
It seems very quiet, far more quieter than it was when, of course, she was with Sean, because we were seeing, as we keep rolling, a lot of red carpet footage, a lot of event footage. It's a quieter life, and it seems very sweet. He is someone who often makes a lot of proclamations on social media and Instagram about how he wishes the days were longer so that he could have more time to spend with his sweet wife, who is the bestest, in his words, the bestest mama that you know it could ever be. And they're about to have their third baby. So it's quiet and obviously much more regulated.
Kelly Carter, thank you as always for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for streaming with us. We'll be back with new episodes every day.
Oh, well. Find it also interesting. Okay, so let me see if we have any updates. Okay, here they go asking about these freak offs again. Hold on here. Okay, so last I left off on this, AUSA was asking Cassie about the green messages. Who were they from? She said those were some she sent to Diddy, telling him that Jules left, and as long as you stay quiet, you can stay. Peace. And then she asked, who is Jules? She says that's an escort. Okay, now comes, she says, did Sean try to come to your apartment? Ventura says, yes, he was banging. That was pretty normal for him. But this is a pretty private building. Did you hear from Miss Coram that day? She says, yes. And I went to see D-Rock and his wife to try to feel safe. Okay, then AUSA says, in this photo, what are you wearing? Ventura says, a gown and sunglasses. I had a black eye. AUSA says, what if any other bruising was visible? Ventura says, I had several bruises on my leg, but I changed clothes. AUSA says, what's this? She said, me and Sean at the after party. Okay, AUSA says, did you try to avoid anything in the freak-offs? Ventura says, I tried to avoid kissing. It seems too intimate, but Sean told me to do it, to kiss the escorts. AUSA said, what did Sean ask you to do on your 29th birthday? Ventura said, a freak off. She says, he had me pulled out of the Blind Dragon for the freak off, some security. AUSA says, what about blackmail material? Ventura says, he wanted me to fear. The defense says, objection. The judge says, overruled. AUSA says, when would Sean mention the freak off videos? She says, to hurt me. Hey, it's all nefarious, honey. They're still talking about these freak offs, honey. I just want you all to pay attention, because right now, it's given that this whole trial is about freak offs. That's all we're hearing about is freak offs. I want to hear about the real crimes. End of the day. Let me check my other sources and see what's popping up here. Cassie said she had to cover up a black eye, a fat lip, and bruised legs to go to the movie premiere. Now, for those of you that have been following, you all know I showed you that picture where she had on the gold dress, because the day after, I think it was like 2 days after Diddy beat her at the hotel, she had a movie premiere. And she went there, she still had some visible bruising. Okay. The movie was called The Perfect Match. I never saw it. Okay. Anyway, the court is now looking at text messages and photos shortly after the hotel attack took place. Cassie Ventura said that she had to attend the premiere of her movie, The Perfect Match, with bruises on her face and body. She said she thought at the time that Combs was sick to think that it was okay to do that to her and wanted him to stay away. The court was also shown a photo of Ventura and Combs smiling at the premiere. She said she had to change her outfit to cover up bruises on her legs and needed to apply a lot of makeup to cover her black eye and fat lip. Diddy is just such an idiot. Okay, he's just such a darn idiot. First of all, who beats somebody like that, period? And then expects them to go to a movie premiere with you a couple of days later and act like everything was just all peaches and cream. JL said she was enamored with him. Yeah, that's what she said yesterday, beloved. That's what she said. Nicole talking about that wig Diddy had on looking like his mama's wig. Okay. Okay, so let me see what's on here. Okay, hold on. Here's a few more updates. Let me see what we're talking about. Okay. Ventura was asked about fighting back. Prosecutors asked Ventura if she fought back against Combs. She testified that she did fight back in the beginning, which would sometimes slow him down and make him stop. Ventura testified sometimes her fighting back would make Combs more violent and make him push her harder. She testified that sometimes Combs would be surprised that she fought back or shocked, which would spur more anger and frustration on his part. Okay, testimony returned to the infamous video of the Combs beating Ventura in the hotel hallway. Ventura was shown a clip from the incident. Now, Ventura testified that Combs was holding his phone or holding her phone in his hand during the incident. She testified he was yelling at her and threw something at her. She then reviewed text messages he sent her after the incident, asking her to call him, and the text in which she said he was surrounded. He told her he was surrounded. Ventura testified that she replied, "It should be okay." From time to time, Ventura rubs her pregnant belly on the stand. Okay, so what is he talking about? He's surrounded. Is he trying to act like he's getting arrested? Diddy is such a manipulator. But anyway, Ventura testified she did not know whether or not police responded to the hotel incident where it took place, as Combs had claimed. See, this is it. He's sitting up here lying to her on the phone, you all, sending her text message telling her, "I'm surrounded." He should have been. Okay, truth be told. Now, she testified that she took a selfie after the incident, which showed her with a fat lip and wearing glasses. She said she wore the sunglasses to cover a black eye. Now, Combs continued to text her, claiming police were at the hotel, asking for her to call him immediately. She testified she responded to him by saying she was supposed to attend a premiere and now she had a black eye. She said, "You're sick for thinking it's okay to do what you've done. Please stay away. Please stay far away from me." That's what she told him in the text message, honey. And she should have lived up to it, because I would not have had anything else to do with him after that. Then she says, Combs continued to text Ventura, writing that if she doesn't pick up, she'll never hear his voice again and won't pick up her calls. "I'm getting arrested." This is what he texts her. It's lying dog. Y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? She said that Diddy's texting her talking about he's surrounded. Now he's talking about, "I'm getting arrested." This is what manipulators do. This is what possessive and controlling people do. When they beat you or do something, dirty to you, and then you don't want, okay, Odd Negroes official said surrounded by demons, okay? And then when you don't want anything to do with them, they try to guilt you and shame you and make you feel obligated to them, make you feel bad for them rather than yourself, who's clearly you're the victim, but they play the victim. And oh, you know, I'm gonna do this to myself, or the police are about to arrest me, and all the fake lying and stuff. This is all just typical narcissistic tactics. This is what they do. Diddy, please sit down somewhere. Diddy, your arse is going to jail. Talk about he's surrounded. Okay, so anyway, now it says, okay, so the last update was when the AUSA said, what did Sean ask you to do on your 29th birthday? And she said, a freak off. What kind of birthday present is that? Okay. And then Ventura says, one time I was dating someone else and he threatened to release the freak off videos. I'd have to answer to my mother. It's horrible and disgusting. No one should do that to anyone. AUSA said, what did Sean say the impact would be? Ventura said, shame. We'll see who's ashamed right now, because I bet he is, honey, after all of his business is out here in the streets. Nicole said, Diddy getting time served for domestic violence. Okay. Please say it ain't so, but it just might be. Just might be. Okay, so I'm going to another video. This one is from ABC. After Cassie's testimony on yesterday, I'm going to share my screen. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Okay, here we go.
And we have breaking news. Cassie Ventura is now on the stand in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship. Let's bring in ABC's Rena Roy at the courthouse and Eva Pilgrim, anchor of ABC News Live's new daily show, Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy, for more. Rena, what's the latest from court?
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently, it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there. Now, remember, this is the first time that they are seeing each other face to face since 2018. You can imagine that emotions are very high in the courtroom right now. And this is expected to be a very lengthy testimony. Prosecutors bracing the courtroom for what's to come as she continues to testify, including videos of these alleged freak-offs. Diane?
And Eva, Cassie's expected to face a lot of questions. This is expected to be a long questioning from both the prosecution and the defense. What are you watching for both sides, given how critical her testimony is for this case?
Well, I think we're going to learn a lot about the nature of Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
And I know they promised to take breaks in order to accommodate her throughout the course of this questioning. And I want to bring in our legal analyst, former trial attorney Terry Austin, for more, because Terry, what Cassie's describing here, right? How this whole thing started. She wanted to make her boyfriend happy, then talking about his violence against her. She says at some point blackmail materials came into play. How damning is this for the defense, and how do you expect them to counter this?
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail. This was not coercion. This was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on. And had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
And Eva, your new ABC News Live daily show, The Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy, airs nightly at 5:30 Eastern. What can we expect tonight?
I think it's the color in the courtroom. There's no cameras, there's no audio, so we can't see and hear for ourselves if you're not sitting in the courtroom. But we here at ABC have eyes and ears inside that courtroom. So it's the testimony, how the person delivered those statements, the reaction in the courtroom. Cassie's husband is going to be in that courtroom listening to her talk about all those things today. How does he respond to it? How does Diddy respond to it?
And it's the first time Diddy and Cassie have seen each other in several years.
Like 18 years, I believe, is the last time they saw each other, right? So that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Since 2018.
Since 2018, sorry, yes, excuse me. 2018 was the last time they saw each other. So, all of those things, what is there tension? The jury, what's the jury's response? They're going to be playing video in court today. Watch the jurors, see how they watch that video. Could they watch the video? We'll be able to have some of that color so people can hear exactly what's going on in the courtroom.
So interesting. All right, Rena Roy, Eva Pilgrim, Terry Austin, thank you.
As long as probably forever, there's only been one Frosty.
All right, so let's see what we got going on here with these updates. Wait a second. Hold on. Hold on. Didn't I see someone said somebody's chin was touching their chest? Who said that? I didn't get to finish reading that comment. Rev It Up said his chin is touching his chest. You all are messy as hell, okay? You are so darn messy, honey. Please pay attention. Anyway, hold on. Let me see what's going on here. Guys, when I told you all that Tory Lanez got stabbed 14 times in prison, honey, they said he got stabbed by a convicted killer. No wonder. I guess he didn't feel like he had anything left to lose, honey, the person that did it. Okay, here we go. Let's see what they got here. Cassie Ventura testified that to celebrate her 29th birthday, she wanted to go to a club called the Blind Dragon and do karaoke with her friends. But she said that Sean Diddy Combs told her he wanted to have a freak off. Is that all he ever thought about? She says, I told him that I wanted to stay out and celebrate with my friends. And in my mind, I just didn't want the burden of having to do that at the end of the night, she said. I just wanted to have my birthday. Ventura said that they went to the Blind Dragon for a bit, but she said Combs pulled her aside so many times that she gave up. She says, and we went and had a freak off. The poor girl couldn't even live in peace. Oh, freak. Now, Cassie Ventura testified that Sean Diddy Combs frequently threatened to release videos of her in freak-offs when he was mad. He threatened her with releasing the videos, usually when he was angry about something or just wanted to wanted me to fear. You know what's interesting about this? Now, he was sitting up there threatening her that he's going to release these videos and stuff at the end of the day. But the bottom line is, look where he's at right now. Okay, and the video that he paid $100,000 for, that he hoped to get rid of, has come back to haunt him. Okay, I call that karma. All right, he sat there and kept talking about he's going to release video footage, but now look where he's at. So, and everybody's seen the footage of him. And so anyway, she said that one time, hold on, he threatened to release the videos, usually when he was angry about something or just really wanted her to fear. One time I was over him dating another man, she said, when Combs threatened to put out 2 embarrassing videos. She feared that he would one day be mad enough to release them. She said, I feared for my career. I feared for my family. It's horrible. It's disgusting. No one should do that to anyone. Johnson showed the jury a message Ventura sent to Combs in 2013, asking him to delete any videos from his phone, saying that she was worried because too many people had access to his devices. She testified Wednesday that she was referencing videos of freak-offs. Combs responded that he already did, and his iCloud wasn't on. All good, he said in the message. Ventura testified that there were times that she was told videos were deleted, but she still saw them later because he was just a liar who lies. Just a liar who lies. Now, while the court is in a short recess, privacy screens are being placed on multiple monitors in the courtroom. Okay, so they're about to show those freak-off videos. That's why they're putting the monitors up. Please pay attention. Okay, so that was from 3 minutes ago. So they're gonna have those put up when they go for a 10-minute recess. Okay, so let's go to the next video. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Let me put an overlay over this.
Took the stand today.
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs.
What was Sean's reaction when he saw Cassie enter the courtroom?
You know, attorneys say that this is the first time that they've met since 2018 when she attended the funeral for Kim Porter, which is the mother of Sean Combs's 3 children. So to watch Sean Combs watching her was really interesting because they haven't seen each other in at least 6 years. But he can't say anything. You know, this is a moment for him where he has to be silent. And right now we're hearing what she says in terms of what happened during the course of their over 10-year relationship.
Is he showing any reaction to what she is saying on the stand?
I can tell you that immediately, the moment she opened her mouth, you could see that Combs was listening intently to everything that she has to say, as well as those jurors. People know that she was that star witness, the key person in all of this. When you think about that civil suit that came out in 2023, that was settled the day after, she really is the person that connects all the dots. When you look at the indictment and you look at some of the charges, she's the one talking about the freak-offs and what was involved and how she had to act. The prosecution is asking her questions to show that she wasn't in control. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak off, the freak off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and said, and she even said, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh, no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Gosh, it's so difficult to hear all of these details. And since taking the stand, Cassie has been emotional. What made Cassie emotional on the stand?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
What have reactions in the courtroom been when explicit details of these freak-offs are being described?
Honestly, I'm looking at his family a lot as these details are coming out, and they really don't have a reaction. They're listening. I thought it was interesting yesterday that during part of that testimony with the escort, the male escort, the girls left. So Sean Combs has 3 daughters that are in the courtroom. They left for some of that testimony yesterday, but today they are staying through all of that testimony from Cassie Ventura.
Cassie's testimony is clearly explosive to both sides, both the prosecution and the defense. What other celebrities might we see take the stand in this case?
You know, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend, who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is...
It's like perspective. Hand it to me and it looks this big. Like, that would be a good skit. Like, you're holding the phone and hand it to me. It's an...
Questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, that might change based on the timing, but because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day.
What are you learning about the nicknames that were used between Cassie and Sean?
Yeah, we learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down in that courtroom.
Her husband's been by her side. He's in the courtroom. Have you been able to see his reaction?
I was sitting about 2 rows behind Cassie's husband, and he also not showing any emotion that I can see visibly on his face, but just staying there and there obviously to support his wife. But I can only imagine how difficult it must be for everybody listening to these details, but definitely somebody who's as close to her as her husband.
Okay. Honey, Diddy is a piece of work. Okay, so the court should be coming back from break shortly. They took a brief break at 11:10, and while they did so, the judge had them bringing in the monitors in the courtroom, the screens, privacy screens added to the monitors. That was about 14 minutes ago. And then they talk about how Diddy's sons are in the courtroom, but the girls are not there today. They have not seen them all morning. Excuse me, all morning. And also his mother's there. And Diddy told his mother he loved her. Now, here's an analysis of how the defense may approach their cross-examination of Cassie. Cassie Ventura has taken the witness stand for the second day after she spent over 4 hours on Tuesday testifying as the prosecution's star witness. Ventura's emotional testimony has at times focused on the power dynamics, the sexual performances known as freak-offs, as well as the physical abuse she endured throughout her time with Combs in a decades-long relationship. But CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson said the defense will likely remind the jury that this is not domestic violence. This is a federal case involving federal crimes, Jackson said. Combs has pleaded not guilty to a total of 5 counts on charges that include racketeering, conspiracy, transportation to engage in prostitution, sex trafficking by force, and coercion. Now, as for how the defense may approach cross-examination of Ventura, Jackson said the fact that Ventura is pregnant is relevant because of the sensitivities involved in that, adding that at the same time, I think you have to get to the core of the issue. Jackson said the defense may try to focus on the fact that Combs and Ventura were in a long-term relationship and question why Ventura didn't just walk away or say no at any point despite having the opportunity to do so. Now, it's important to note, Jackson says, that the issue really is not about a person's sex life on trial. Jurors are not there to be the morality police. The issue is, is it a federal offense? Where is the fraud? Where is the coercion? The bottom line is that, yes, there are a lot of sensitivities in this cross-examination, Jackson says. But at the end of the day, keep your eyes on the prize. The defense attorneys would say it's not about sex, okay? Not about salaciousness. I think he meant to say the prosecution, because this doesn't even make sense for the defense to say this. He says the defense attorneys would say it's not about sex, not about salaciousness, it's about criminality. No, he got that mixed up. He meant the prosecution, I'm so sure. So with that all been said, listen, they better get to proving it, because right now it's given domestic violence. Okay, so the jury is now entering the courtroom following their brief break. Okay, so more updates coming soon. All right, so how y'all feeling today? What are y'all thinking? Are y'all excited? Are y'all just anxious to find out what's going on? Does everybody have their popcorn? Queen Sam said, when she said no, he bugged the hell out of her on her birthday until she gave in. Right. Okay, and then remember, if she didn't answer her phone, he would just come and try to hunt her down or send one of his goons to come and try to find her. It's like she couldn't get a moment's peace. I mean, now looking back, you know, she probably asked herself, was it all worth it? Okay, please. Clearly not. Not all of that, honey. Diddy is just a hot mess. And then listen to how the lady said he was sitting there staring at Cassie every time she was speaking. You know, almost my friend told me, my source basically said, it's like he was just lingering on every word that she said. I wonder what he was thinking. I wonder what was running through Diddy's mind. It's all the tea was being spilled on him. I would just feel like a piece of crap if I were him. And everybody sitting there listening to all the stuff that I'm accused of and then seeing the video of the beat down and all of that. Diddy is a monster, honey. Okay. Nubian Cutie said he was getting off. He could have been. He absolutely could have been. Rashid said this is why the baccalaureate parties were forbidden by the Romans and driven underground. Read, folks, read. Beloved, I already told you all that. I don't know if you were on here, but I went all through all of that. Yes, it absolutely was discontinued. Okay? It was discontinued because it got too violent. And also, it didn't start getting violent until men started showing up because the bacchanalias were initially just for women. And then they started letting the men come, and that's when it turned to a problem. Okay? Because the men that were coming were probably like Diddy on the DL. Okay? And then all the violence started, and then that's when they had to cancel them. All right, so please pay attention, honey. Men just come along and ruin stuff for everybody else. That's how it seems. That's how it seems, right? Hold on, let me put this other video here. Okay, so here is a report about day 2, which was yesterday on the Sean Diddy Combs. They're going to talk about Cassie's testimony. Okay, so let me go ahead and put this up while we're waiting for more updates. D Major Scaling said men ruin everything. I mean, that's so nefarious. The end of the day.
Day in court today in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Cassie Ventura, the R&B singer and former girlfriend of Combs, revealed shocking details of sex, violence, and alleged abuse. She gave graphic testimony about drug-fueled parties and spoke of how fear ruled her relationship with the music mogul.
Combs faces several charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking by force. KTLA's Carlos Salcedo has been following the trial and joins us live from the KTLA News Center with more. Carlos?
Micah shared very emotional testimony from the star witness. Cassandra Ventura took the witness stand testifying against her ex-boyfriend, Sean Diddy Combs. She says she was forced to partake in the so-called freak-offs involving sex workers. The defense argues the sexual arrangements were consensual, while prosecutors are seeking to prove this was coercion. Explosive testimony from the prosecution's star witness, singer Cassandra Ventura, known as Cassie. She took to the stand 8 months pregnant to detail the abusive, toxic relationship with her ex, hip-hop star Sean Diddy Combs. Wiping away tears, Ventura testified she was forced to participate in long, drug-fueled sex parties with male escorts known as freak-offs. Some would last up to 4 days. She says Combs' demands were hard to refuse over fears of violence and blackmail.
The entire case may come down to her testimony, and not just her testimony right now when she's on the stand, but how well does she hold up on cross-examination?
Nima Romani is a former federal prosecutor who credits Ventura's civil case against Diddy as the genesis for the Fed's criminal probe.
This investigation started in November 2023 when Cassie filed her bombshell civil lawsuit. Diddy settled it the very next day, but it was too late. The lawsuit was public, and after that, victim after victim came forward making similar allegations.
The jury has already seen surveillance of Combs dragging, kicking, and punching Ventura in a hotel hallway back in 2016. She testified he would smash me in my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head if I was down. When asked how frequently during their decade-long relationship, she replied, too frequently. Combs has denied any wrongdoing and pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering. The defense acknowledges he was responsible for domestic violence, but maintains any sexual arrangements were completely consensual.
Certainly the defense coming forward with there's nothing illegal about unconventional sexual preferences. If even one juror believes that, obviously there's no conviction.
Now, Ventura will be back on the witness stand tomorrow. Her testimony is expected to last for several days. Combs could face life in prison if convicted on these charges. Reporting live from the KTLA News Center, Carlos Salcedo, KTLA 5 News.
Thank you, Carlos.
Ventura before cross-examination by the defense. Yesterday, Ventura testified Combs was often physically abusive and controlling during their 10-year relationship that included forcing her into so-called freak-offs where she had sex with strangers while Sean Combs watched. Ventura said that she did it to fulfill his fantasy and make him happy, and also testified about Combs hitting her many times, including the incident in a hotel hallway in 2016 that was captured on security cameras.
Joining us now to discuss is legal analyst Arifa Martin. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Arian Robin.
Do her comments mitigate the argument that this was trafficking and racketeering when she, I don't know if she's a willing participant, but she seemed to be agreeable based on what her comments were?
Well, I didn't hear anything that suggested that she was agreeable at all.
She said she wanted to fulfill her husband's fantasies and she wanted to make him happy.
Well, she also said that she felt she couldn't leave and that if she did not participate in these freak-offs, that she would face retribution, that she might be blackmailed, and that her whole career could be ruined. So let's be very clear what she described.
Okay, first of all, why is she coming to her with the whole attitude with the man? He's just asking questions, honey. Do y'all notice how she seems? I mean, I knew from looking at her, does she not like men or something? She seems very hostile. I'd be like, girl, calm down. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. Nubian Cutie says, Queen, I think you mentioned in the past about the charges. He may get off due to not being able to prove these particular charges. That's what I'm saying. They absolutely are not giving what they're, what they're accusing him of, what's in the indictment, everything but that, as far as I'm concerned, beloved. So yes, absolutely. Queen Sam said he's not her husband. Exactly. But that's what, that's what Cassie was telling these S workers when she was hiring them. Oh, my husband's not gay, so he's not going to try to touch you or anything. She was saying that Diddy was her husband, honey. So that's probably why they're repeating it.
Yesterday in her testimony was psychological manipulation. And it was, in fact, coercion. And that's all the prosecution has to prove for sex trafficking is that she was forced or coerced to participate in commercial sex acts. And when we
Okay, is she just going to gloss over the fact that Cassie did mention her out of her own mouth yesterday something about swinging? How did nobody, I have not heard anybody catch that except for me. Are y'all paying attention? I didn't hear anybody else say anything about Cassie using the word swinging and said that's what Diddy talked to her about. Okay, please pay attention.
Talk about the strangers that she was having sex with. The majority of the people we know from the prosecution were commercial sex workers who were transported across state lines. And that is the simple facts that have to be established by the prosecution to get a conviction under the Mann Act, which is one of the charges that he's been, that's one of the charges against Sean Diddy Combs. And let's talk about that RICO charge. You all very familiar with the use of RICO in cases like this because of the R. Kelly trial that happened right there in Chicago. So we know that prosecutors have become very skilled at using RICO, federal statute, to prosecute the kinds of predators like Sean Diddy Combs.
Talk about the impact of, Cassie is 8 months pregnant and she's recalling all of these details, which are horrific. Talk about the impact something like that has on the jury, regardless of where it falls as far as charges, sitting on a jury and hearing a witness testify to things like that?
Wow, it has to be incredibly powerful, persuasive. I have talked with lawyers who were inside the courtroom and other reporters, and they said it was the most chilling testimony they've ever heard. It's one of the most horrific accounts of abuse, sexual abuse that they have witnessed. And yes, to have her in her 8th.
Okay, so AUSA, they're back from the break. AUSA Johnson says there's still some issues with the privacy screen, so we'll put that off and do something else now. The judge says, okay, welcome back, Ms. Ventura. Bring in the jury. AUSA Johnson says, I offer more exhibits. So then AUSA Johnson says, what did you say? What did you say here? Ventura says, I'd been told there was an sexually explicit video out there about me, and I reached out to Sean. AUSA says, then what? Ventura says, we were driving back to New York City from Atlantic City to talk to his DJ, this DJ, Woo Kid. Anybody know who that is? Because I don't. AUSA says, did that happen? Ventura says, at a restaurant. AUSA says, what was security's role? Ventura says, to intimidate. They were lining the room. AUSA said, who was there? Ventura says, Uncle Paulie and James Cruz. Okay.
Month of pregnancy have to recount those horrific details of Sean Diddy Combs urinating on her while this sex worker was also urinating on her. Sean Diddy Combs controlling every aspect of these freak-offs, including the positions that she had to be in, including the nail polish that she wore, and then the physical violence, having bruises all over her body, knots on her head, black eyes, and learning that the video that has been played now 5 times for the jury of her running in that lobby was her trying to get away from.
Okay, at the end of the day, here's the thing. What are you all thinking about this lady? Doesn't she come off as if she's just very upset and hostile or something? Ladybug said they're painting these S workers like they were forced to be S workers. I know, right? I mean, this is all crazy. Listen, the bottom line is these people did it for the damn money. She is acting like they forced, and in fact, I want you all to pay attention because that's part of the Fed's case. When they're accusing Diddy of trafficking, they're not just talking about Cassie, they're talking about the S workers too, that they were hired and he flew them out to different places as well, which is crazy because that was their job. They voluntarily went because they wanted the money. And some of them were just fanboys, like that one who said he liked living that lifestyle and being around them. So like, this is all crazy at the end of the day. And this lady's going in hard in the paint, but I'm sorry, everything that she's saying is nothing but domestic violence, okay, at the very least, and maybe S assault, but unfortunately for the prosecution, they didn't charge Diddy for that. They should have.
One of those.
Based on what you're saying, is there any card that the defense has left to play? What strategy do they have left?
Well, you know, Larry, trials are marathons. Good days for the prosecution, good days for the defense. And I don't want to suggest that the defense is not going to do the best job that they can with the evidence that will be presented in this case. But they have a Herculean task ahead of them, trying to convince, I think, a juror, any juror, and particularly this jury pool, that this is not coercion, this is not sex trafficking, this is not consistent with the prosecution's case, that Sean Diddy Combs is not guilty of the charges that have been brought against him. But it's early on in the trial. I don't have a crystal ball. We don't know where this is going to go. There are lots of witnesses that will be called by the prosecution. And there will be witnesses, I'm sure, for the defense that will talk about aspects of this case that will paint Cassie Ventura and some of the other victims in a negative light. We've seen that play out in many of these high-profile cases before. So we all have to kind of sit back and wait. But if we are scoring this, the score is for the prosecution. A good day for them on yesterday.
Well, thank you for joining us, Ariva. We appreciate it. We'll keep an eye on that trial, of course, and check back in with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to other news now. Google.
The prosecution's star witness taking the stand, but it was more than that. It was how Cassie took that stand. You could hear a pin drop when those doors opened, and a visibly pregnant Cassie Ventura walking past a man she had not seen in 6.5 years, a man she says violently abused her for a decade, a man the prosecution said trafficked her. Well, she sat across from him, placed her overcoat behind her, turning her body slightly toward the jury, rubbing her pregnant belly throughout her testimony. Diddy, well, he was more fidgety than he was the day before. He was passing notes. He pushed himself away from the defense table and largely sat like that. They never seemed to make eye contact with one another, not even after she was crying about having loved him once and planning and participating in these freak-off sex parties because she feared him and she wanted to make him happy, but feeling worthless, feeling disgusting because she didn't want to do it. Now, with each moment, the testimony became more.
I want you all to think about something. Okay, please take a moment and think about something. You all remember the young lady. What was the young lady's name that was trafficked? And she was 16 years old and she killed the guy. You all know who I'm talking about, Cyndia Brown. What was her name? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Somebody help me out. What is that young lady's name? She recently got out like some years ago. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? Hold on. Let me look her up real quick. I was just sitting here thinking about the irony of it all. Hold on. Hold on. Let me let this play while I figure out her name. Hold on.
More and more graphic. Her delivery, though, it never changed. It was matter of fact, steady, calm. At times, she was even critical of herself, walking us all through how a 10-album record deal came over a 10-year period of abuse and sexual humiliation. And once you hear Cassie's testimony, you'll understand why the
Cyndia Brown. That's what I'm talking about. You all remember Cyndia Brown, who got sentenced to prison, and it was another black girl too named Crystal. I don't remember her last name, but both of them were victims of trafficking, if you remember, and they were trafficked by men who don't look like them, okay, by white men, and they both took them out. They both killed their predators, okay, because they feared for their lives. You all remember that? And Cyndia stayed in prison for like maybe almost 10 years or whatever, and she's out. Well, don't you find it interesting that these women were trafficked, and then they had all these heinous things done to them, like they're accusing Diddy of doing to Cassie. And then when these women fought back and killed the predators who did these things to them, they were sent to prison. So what I find very interesting, and that's of course because the predators were white and these women were black. Okay, I want you all to really think about that, because they're going hard in the paint about this situation with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, but at the end of the day, when black women, and Cassie's part black, but at the end of the day, think about how these black women who are younger than Cassie, 16, 17 years old, when they're manipulated, when they're trafficked and they're brutalized and they're assaulted and all these things by these Caucasian men, and then if they fight back and defend themselves, then they get sent to prison. Okay, now they want to sit here at the state and pretend they're so concerned about victims of trafficking. Okay, I just want y'all to marinate on that for a second. Honey, the state don't give a damn about trafficking. If they did, they'd lock up these real traffickers and they put a stop to it. But when people go to the police much of the time and complain about things like this, the police try to act like they're crazy. And that's because sometimes the police are absolutely involved in it. Okay, you all heard what Al Bashir said when he went to them years ago, supposedly. He said they laughed at him. And this is what happens. And yes, Reggie, you're right. It is a double standard at the end of the day. Okay, they sent those women to prison, young ladies, shall I say, because they were teenagers, sent them to prison. Why don't they have the same smoke for those white men who do these things as they do for black men? That's all I'm saying. That's just what annoys me. I just sat here and thought about that while she was talking. But let me go back to the video.
The courtroom was so tense. She described the freak-offs in lurid detail. She testified about Diddy, who she called Sean, choreographing it all. And she explained a pattern of physical abuse that she could not escape. Cassie told the jury about one freak off at a hotel where Diddy told her to get into an inflatable pool filled with warm baby oil. The prosecutor asked, "What concerns did you have about not getting into the pool with baby oil?" Cassie responded, quote, "that amongst other things, just his temper. If that is something that he wanted, Sean wanted to happen, that was going to happen. There wasn't another way around it. Now, Cassie claims that Diddy controlled everything about her life and his staff helped him do it. She also says all aspects of the freak-offs went through Diddy for approval, from how he directed her to finding escorts, at times from Craigslist, to her appearance and what she wore, and even what happened during the encounters with the other men. She testified, quote, every freak-off was like directed by Sean, like he knew specifically where he wanted everyone to be, the lighting and such. Cassie says the freak-offs made her feel disgusting, humiliated. She says she took all kinds of drugs to numb herself and disassociate. And she testified Diddy frequently got physically abusive. One of those times was during a 2016 incident at a California hotel. This video. Cassie says she was in a freak-off with Diddy and an escort just a couple of days before her first big movie premiere. And she claims Diddy gave her a black eye. She says. The prosecutor asked, quote, how many times had Sean thrown you to the ground like that before? Cassie responded, too many to count. I don't know. Cassie was also asked if there were occasions when she tried to fight back when he would hit her. She said, no. Cassie's testimony, it's far from over. She'll be back on that stand tomorrow. And her lawyer, though, says she's feeling good after today.
How do you feel after today?
It's not for me to decide how we feel. It's up to the jury. But we're very confident.
How's Cassie doing after it all? How is she feeling? I know it must have been a lot to kind of recount all the experiences.
It was a long day. I'm just super proud of her.
Let's start off with CNN's Kara Scannell, who has been covering this case from the very beginning, and she was in the courtroom today, virtually a front row seat. Kara, tell me, how did the testimony come in? How were these freak-offs orchestrated?
So Cassie kind of walked the jury through what her role was in the freak-offs and how she said that Combs had choreographed them. He was the director in charge. And what she described was that these freak-offs lasted from 36 to 72 hours. The longest one, she said, lasted 4 days. And through that period, she said her role had evolved from initially Combs setting up the first one to then it becoming essentially her job. These freak-offs, she said, were occurring weekly. And what she was responsible for was finding these escorts, using Craigslist, some of these other escort services, helping them travel to certain locations from Miami to Ibiza, to New York, to LA, to Las Vegas. And that she worked with Combs's business travel people in order to move people around, saying that they would project that they were potential employers and getting them to move. But she said that he had everything to do with what she was wearing. She said she would buy outfits from sex shops and see which one he wanted her to wear. And then inside the actual hotel rooms, their apartments where the freak-offs took place, she said that Combs was in charge of lighting. It began with candles. It then moved to studio lighting, that he was directing how they moved from each action of each sexual act in these freak-offs, and even the amount of baby oil that they were wearing. She said that he wanted them to be glistening, and so he would often encourage them to put on more baby oil.
Okay, so Diddy's just ridiculous at this point. Okay, so now Cassie Ventura is testifying that she was told about a sexually explicit video of her while she was at an event in Atlantic City in March of 2014. Immediately, my thoughts went to a freak-off video. The jury saw a text message thread between Ventura and her former boyfriend, Sean Diddy Combs. Combs told her to find out more about what he knew about the video and where it came from. So find out more about what he knew about it and where it came from. Okay, interesting. Hold on, beloveds. Hold on, what just happened? Okay, Combs told her to ask the person what the room looked like in the video. You got to tell him this is your life. This is serious, he told her. She met the man and a DJ who had shown him the video at a restaurant in New York the next day. She brought security with her to intimidate the men at Combs's direction. Okay, her manager, James Cruz, was also at the diner. Now I want you all to pay attention to this. So Diddy sent Cassie to go meet this person, then told her to take security with her to intimidate. Now he's trying to make Cassie intimidate people. Oh, crazy. Okay, this is all crazy. At the end of the day, said that she was told about an sexually explicit video of her. Now, mind you, this video that was floating around of her, Diddy's probably the one who released it. Because do you all remember when 50 Cent came out and said that Diddy was sharing stuff about Cassie? Do y'all remember that? And said that he had pictures of Cassie and everything. And he's like, this is supposed to be his woman. And he's just sharing this stuff with everybody. Now he's sitting here telling her to go find out how the guy got the video and tell him this is your life. Little did she know that he's probably the one who gave it to the person. And so anyway, and then telling her to take security so they can intimidate him. Now, Cassie Ventura is describing what she and Sean Diddy Combs would do in order to recover after a freak off. Ventura said she and Combs would take IV fluids, get massages, and often take opiates. Opiates made me feel numb, which is why I relied on them so heavily, she said, adding that Combs sometimes provided the rugs. Ventura testified that she had regular gastrointestinal issues from the rugs, and she took them so frequently. She would also have urinary tract infections from the freak offs. I guess she did, honey. Listen, let me tell y'all something. I knew this was coming. Okay, I knew this was coming. Urinary tract infections, yeah, but all those different men you're sleeping with all these different freak off sessions, and then the oil getting up in there, that's just all a mess. And then the astro slide and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Okay, I am not surprised at all. So she said the UTIs were so frequent, she would often have an infection during freak offs, and typical medication stopped working. Wow. She said she would also get mouth sores from fellatio and taking rugs during that time. Not mouth sores. Y'all know where that is. Y'all already know what they said about Diddy. Okay, this is why Jonathon Oddi sued him. This is all crazy. Okay, so anyway, yeah, mouth sores. Okay, so anyway, Ventura says she felt empty after the freak offs. Okay, she said she felt worse when she didn't stay with him after a freak off. She said she felt like, okay, I did my job and now I'm going on about the rest of my life. The same feelings over and over. All a hot mess. Let's continue.
And then the drug use. Part of that testimony, she said, was that she had engaged and used numerous drugs, including ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, cocaine, marijuana. And the prosecution showed text messages where before a freak off, she is texting Combs asking, which colored pill do I take from your Louis Vuitton med bag? And he directed her which one to take.
It was astonishing to have all of this come in and the tempo with which she spoke, the jury in this room leaning in at times to hear more information. She also described what she feared most about defying him.
Right. I mean, she walked through what the range of these fears were, from physical to just if she upset him, he would take away her phone, her car, limit her access to her apartment. Sometimes that was done by him, sometimes through members of his staff, some of his security team. She also was testifying that, that these physical threats, one thing that stood out to me that she said was if she made the wrong face, the next thing I knew I was getting hit in the face. And she said he controlled almost every aspect of her life. He gave her essentially busy work, a to-do list, so he would know what she was doing at all times. If he couldn't reach her, he was incessantly texting her until someone went and checked to see where she was. She also said that he controlled her appearance. Sometimes he didn't like her hair. He wanted her to dress sexy, sometimes a tomboy. He wanted her nails to be white, she testified, especially during the freak offs. And one thing that she said she was concerned about was blackmail, because a lot of these freak offs were recorded. And the big concern was hers that they could end up in the internet if somehow she did something to upset him.
We're just a half day into this testimony. There's so much more. And the jury was shown that now infamous 2016 hotel surveillance video.
Okay, time for some updates. Okay, so let me start right here. Okay, so AUSA says, what sores? Okay, so remember, I just told you that she said sometimes she gets sores around her mouth. So AUSA says, what sores? Ventura says, friction in my mouth. AUSA says, from what? Ventura says, from fellatio. She calls it oral. You know, that's what she called it. Okay, AUSA said, you said another UTI, then sad face emoji. Ventura says, I was open with him about them. AUSA said, so you feel sick? Ventura says, why are you sorry? I took the blame for things. That's what she told the prosecutor. Why are you sorry? Or she basically, oh, I'm sorry. She must be reading what Diddy wrote. Why are you sorry? I took the blame for things. Okay, so having all these UTIs and all this stuff, this has got to be just ghastly. Anyway, AUSA says, is this Jules? And then she shows a picture with a big smile. Ventura says, yes. AUSA says B606 and 607 side by side. These are clearly some exhibits that she's showing. Cassie in big glasses. Ventura says, that's me, a selfie of me with a fat lip. When did you take it? She says, in the Uber with one of my phones. AUSA says, what did you write here? Ventura says, I said, please stay away from me. And then AUSA says, what does he say? Ventura says, he says, I'm getting arrested. AUSA said, was he? Ventura said, I don't think so. AUSA says, what did you write back? Ventura says, plugging my phone in and going to bed. Just letting Diddy know, honey, I'm not trying to hear it. Okay, now here's a letter. They say this letter, now amid the second day of Cassie Ventura's direct testimony in U.S. versus Sean Combs, here is an exhibit from the trial, the LA hotel security email. Okay, so I'm going to read this. It says, oh, honey, this is so small. Let me see if I can enlarge it a little bit or something. Okay, let me try to enlarge this. This print is really... Okay, so here's what it says. Today, March 5th of 2016, at approximately 11:14 a.m., I received a call from Instant Services, Wanda, stating that she had just gotten a distress call from the 6th floor. I then looked at the cameras too familiar with the situation up on the floor. All I saw before I took off immediately was a male, black, wearing only a towel, walking back and forth. I arrived at the scene at 11:15 a.m. I noticed that the black male was rapper Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy. I observed Mr. Combs sitting down on the far left chair of the 6th floor, and the female, who was closer to the hallway, later identified as Cece by Mr. Combs. Remember, she said he called her Cece, that stood for Cassie Combs. She says, I saw the damage that had been done, and I began to diffuse the situation by advising Mr. Combs to understand his status and the safety and concerns of our guests as he began yelling at Miss Cece. And I advised both of them to separate from each other, that it wasn't convenient for both of them to continue this, especially in the hallway in a towel. I then proceeded to advise him to return back to his room. Now, Mr. Combs began to offer me a bribe. You take care of this. I got you. Let's go to my room. I then responded with, sir, I know who you are, while extending my arm to him to shake his hand. And I said, all I ask is for respect for the guest and myself. So do me this favor and let's return to your room. He got up and began to walk to his room as we made our way down the hallway, down the north hallway. Miss Cece was behind us, coming from the south hallway. Mr. Combs noticed her while turning back and began to raise his voice. I then told him that if he didn't respect the guests, then he would be escorted off the property. We walked over to his room, which was 602, and when he went inside and Miss Cece was told to leave by Mr. Combs, so she did just that. Mr. Combs opened the door and brought out a currency band wrapped around $100. Okay, and told me again, thank you, and said, you take care of this and I'll take care of you. I declined the money and told Mr. Combs that all we needed was for him to stay in his room until checkout, which is today. I left the scene at 11:25 a.m. Now, I took the elevator down and I saw Miss Cece and advised her that I did not want him to see her as I walked her over to the valet office until her ride got there. I asked her that we would need some information from her to stand by. I then walked over to MOD. I don't know what that is. I guess it's an office because it says MOD Addie's office, and advised him of the situation that I needed him present. We then walked over to Miss Cece, and she was unable to locate. We then went up to the 6th floor and took pictures of the guest lobby elevator, of the elevator landing, and made our way to guest room 602. MOD Addie wanted to introduce himself and let him know of the hotel rules and to advise him that the damages would be charged to his room. When Mr. Combs came out, he was about to start yelling, still in his towel, but MOD Addie and I stopped him before he did and advised him that we were not there to make it bigger, than it already was. He saw MOD Addie holding a phone and he automatically assumed he was being recorded. So he grabbed his hand and he grabbed his phone and told him to back off, and took his phone and took his hand away from MOD Addie. He was then told no one was recording him, that the safety and the privacy of the guests is important to the hotel. And if he tried to do something like that, he would get kicked out and escorted off the property by LAPD. He calmed himself down and apologized and stated, it's just that I don't want to lose anything and I can lose it all. Oh, really? Huh? He should have thought about that now. Okay, please pay attention at the end of the day. Hold on, beloved. Okay, do y'all hear this talking about he don't want to lose anything and he could lose it all? Well, that's what you're about to do right now, Diddy. Sad for you. Okay, so then he says, hold on, beloveds, trying to find my place. Yeah, he said, I don't want to lose anything and I could lose it all. Okay, then we reassured him that all we need him to do was to calm down and not have any more scenes from that time until his checkout time. We then left the scene and resumed normal operations. And there's a footnote at the bottom that says, we will be conducting extra patrols until his checkout, in which we will be taking pictures of how the room is left. At this moment, here are the pictures that MOD Addie took of the guest lobby. Please stand by until we have all the pictures. Mr. Combs has not checked out yet. Okay, so honey, Diddy is just a crazy fool. They just made a mess in that hotel, honey. And this is something that they would usually do, according to the reports. Mind you, when they're having these freak-offs and Wild King nights, just messing up these fancy hotels, baby oil, wax from candles. I mean, just all sorts of bodily fluids, the funk from 40,000 years. And all of this is just crazy. Okay, this is just all so ridiculous. Okay, Maud is manager on duty. Thank you, beloved. Okay, no weapon one. Thank you. Okay, that's what that was. So manager on duty, Addie. Okay, thanks. Got it. Okay, so anyway, honey, now it says that let me see here. Cassie Ventura testified that she was injured during the freak-offs on several occasions, okay, when Sean Diddy Combs would put hands on her. She said it happened too frequently, and there were times when Combs would assault her with an escort still in the room. Yeah, because he didn't give a darn. And I think that he was assaulting her in front of those men to scare them as well, too. Okay, just to put the fear of God in them, thinking, you know, for them to be sitting there thinking, if he does all that to her, what will he do to me? So I just better sit back. Okay, he is such an idiot, honey. This is all so egregious. But anyway, let's continue.
For now, what, a fifth or more time today? Why do you think the prosecution continues to show this video, sometimes stopping it and showing parts.
Yeah, they've been showing this at least 5 times on my account and going kind of moment by moment. And I think what they're trying to do here is they've charged Combs with sex trafficking by force and coercion. And part of that force is physical violence and the threat of physical violence. I mean, this is why Combs's lawyer has called this probably the most important piece of evidence in this whole trial, because that is how the prosecution will want to show the jury that there was violence, that it was real. You can't distinguish this. They're not denying this happened. What Combs' lawyers is trying to tell the jury, though, that this is not evidence of sex trafficking. It's evidence of domestic violence, which he owns, but they're saying it is a very different thing than what he's been charged with.
I want to start with you, Stacey, because her testimony, did it prove there was a criminal enterprise? That's they got to prove for RICO.
Right. So I look at her testimony today as domestic violence on steroids. The prosecution is trying to show that there was coercion and that he used his business enterprise to engage in coercing women to fulfill his sexual desires. I think it's a little bit of a stretch. I understand there are all kinds of criminal activities being alleged here, but the racketeering and the sex trafficking charges, I'm not sure that Cassie made that out today.
It's
Now,
only
there may
day
be
2,
more.
though,
It's
right?
only
I
day
mean,
2.
and you're looking
And
at
they're
this,
trying
Misty,
for it.
it's day 2.
Yeah.
So the jury, and this is, by the way, an 8 to 10 week trial.
Yeah.
They have a lot to show, but they called her almost first. She's getting ready to give birth probably in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she's the most critical witness. And there's a reason for that, because yes, the case is not made yet, but she's laid the foundation for establishing those charges for the prosecution. And here's how. With respect to sex trafficking, we heard about the power dynamic, that he was always in control. We heard about stomping, kicking, hitting, all of these physical acts to get her to comply, psychological abuse, blackmail. That's where we get our force, fraud, and coercion. And as far as RICO, she kind of put the O in organization in RICO by naming individuals who were in his sphere and were doing his bidding and talking about what would be the predicate underlying crimes.
But more
drugs,
than that,
guns,
they
prostitution.
showed the picture. They actually tried to put a face to what they were calling the enterprise. Remember, in the opening statements, they were saying it was the inner circle, the bodyguards, trusted assistants. They actually went through and showed pictures to the jury today of various bodyguards trying, I guess we were talking about, to establish the enterprise. But then there was this moment, Jeremy, where she actually said on the stand, eventually it became a job for me. She's talking about planning these freak-offs. Eventually it became a job for me, to where I knew that if that is something that he wanted to do, I had the contacts to set it up and get a hotel room and all of that. And sometimes she'd even give deposits on her own personal credit card. So is she part of the enterprise or the victim of it?
Well, the defense is going to try to make her out to be part of this. She's not a victim. She's there willfully. She's getting this 10 contract,
She is part of it.
record deal. This is what she's doing. And the prosecution,
They convinced me with it. She is part of it. Okay. I'm sorry. It's true. You all don't think she's part of it. Once, if you think she's part of it. Once, if you think she's part of it. Choose if you think not. She absolutely is a part of it. She was literally setting it up. Okay. She was literally setting it up. And I'm going to tell you all something like this. This is all such a load of BS, the way they're trying to paint it, because quite frankly, if Diddy was a white man and that was somebody that looked like me accusing them of that, they would put it on the person. I guarantee you they would put it on the black woman. Oh, you were the one setting it all up. I promise you that's what they were doing. Y'all know it too. Okay, I see a lot of ones.
in return, is going to say, you can white knuckle someone's neck with control. You can white knuckle their soul with control. And that's the control he had over her at all times.
Anna?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. What bombshell revelations have come out?
I don't know who that is. I don't know who he is, but he sounds like TC Dan said anyone can paint narratives, only the facts matter. Exactly. Okay. That is the truth. Now, y'all heard what that lady said. She said it's giving domestic violence on steroids. I mean, that's all it's given so far. Now, I don't know what else is going to go on, but if this is their star witness, they better come harder today. Okay, they need to come correct, because this is just giving domestic violence, like they said. Now, I'm going to go to this video of TMZ, and y'all know TMZ doesn't play. They will definitely hit you with a copyright claim. So I'm going to put an overlay on this so we can hear what they're talking about.
Way there have been opening statements, and there is now testimony in the case. And the opening statements kind of predictably laid out the prosecution's case and Diddy's defense.
But what the prosecutors started with a bang, with a statement that clearly they knew would get a lot of headlines, but more importantly, get the attention of the jury, talking about details, graphic details from the freak-offs. And
we should warn the people watching this, this is going to get graphic.
Right. There's a reason that they last week kept saying that to all the prospective jurors, it will be graphic. What was said this morning by the prosecution said that Diddy hired escorts for these freak-offs, and that it wasn't just sex. There were other acts that were going on. The one they said that really got everyone's attention, they claimed that he hired escorts, on one occasion, hired an escort and forced him to urinate on Cassie. And that he forced not only the escort to do this, but Cassie is the way the government lays it out.
So we talked about this in our morning meeting today. So let's just be real here. This is shades of R. Kelly. And that
the reason they brought that up first.
I mean, I don't think there's any question that R. Kelly paints a picture that kind of resonated with everybody. And the prosecution came out of the gate with something that sounded similar.
They want to show him, they want the jury to see him see Diddy parallel to R. Kelly, who everyone knows is going to be in prison for almost all the rest of his life.
And so,
so if you got him convicted,
of course, and that's
you want it right,
and that's effective.
Yeah.
They also, and I think this is going to become a really important part of this case on both sides. The prosecution painted Diddy as a violent, jealous man who could not handle any attention heaped on Cassie by any other man.
Right. And that was part of their argument around the videotape, which obviously they mentioned as well. They talk about that beating, and the government was setting up what they know that Diddy's side is going to say. This was not about forcing her to stay. This was an argument about jealousy, about she thought I was, but found another phone number. So the government is trying to rebut that already. Right?
Well, yeah,
Saying,
and the defense already came out of the gate in their opening statements addressing that. And they are saying that Diddy is a violent man. They said that he has a huge anger issue, controlling his temper.
They said there's domestic, yes, they said, yes, there was domestic violence.
That's the key. That's the key. They are saying that this relationship was steeped in domestic violence. And they're alleging on both sides, it was the nature of their relationship. Now, domestic violence is a crime, but it's a state crime. He's not being prosecuted
not
for
what
that.
He's being prosecuted
So
for. And
that's
they also
where
reminded the jury of that.
And that's why they're raising it right now. They're saying, look, we're conceding it. There was a lot of domestic violence, they say, on both sides. But if you want to target Diddy for a domestic violence abuser, guilty as charged, it's just he's not charged here. This would have been a state crime. It's not your job. Right. So they're coming out of the gate trying to diffuse what they know is coming next, which is the Cassie video. Right.
Yeah. And look, I think that's a pretty sound strategy to basically concede on the issues that they can't really win. There was some violence. That video tells a pretty vivid story, but that's not what he's on trial for. However, I think the prosecutors have a pretty interesting case. It sounds like they're sort of kink shaming Diddy about his private affairs, but the further you get away from the norm, where you have escorts who are saying that they were maybe ordered to urinate on Cassie, it starts to look like it can't be consensual. And that's what they want to convince the jury, is that.
Okay, I'm going to give a couple of updates, but if you all remember, the escort said that Cassie told him to do it. He said Cassie was the one who told him to urinate on her, not Diddy. Okay, I don't know why everybody's glossing over that. Okay, AUSA, did you send this photo to Sean? Ventura says yes, and I wrote, so you can remember. I wanted him to be sorry about it at least. AUSA said, is this photo where you were? Ventura says, in the green room in Toronto. I put my hair over my eye. Then we went to the Hamptons. Ventura says, Sean wanted to have a freak off in the Hamptons. We got a hotel and an escort. AUSA said, which one? Ventura said, Dave. I took GHB. I went into a G hole and blacked out. I woke up nude in the shower. Dave and Sean were freaking out. I bugged out. It wasn't pretty. Okay, so this is another time where Cassie supposedly passed out. And I want you all to pay attention, because that's what Jonathon Oddi was saying in the video that I showed you all this morning, where he did the interview from jail, okay, or from prison. He said that Cassie had passed out one time and he thought she was dead. And so that's why he took it upon himself to start recording these incidents, because he said if she died or if anybody died, he did not want to be held responsible for it, because there was so much rampant use of rugs with a D. This is a darn shame, honey. They were all addicts, okay? I'm not saying Jonathon Oddi, but Diddy and Cassie and some of those workers, they all had to be. Okay, so she said she was bugged out and it wasn't pretty. Okay, then AUSA says, what happened to Keynes? Ventura says, Sean accused me of taking rugs from his boat. He threw me off, but my passport was still on the boat. AUSA said, and you were on the red carpet that same night? Ventura said, yes. AUSA said, did you attend the movie? She says, yes. Okay, AUSA says, how did you get back to New York? Ventura says, on a commercial flight. I traded my seat to get away, but he traded to get next to me. AUSA says, what did he show you? Ventura said, freak off videos. He played them for me on one of his laptops. He said he'd release them. Still torturing the poor girl. After all this, bumps upside the head, did her dirty, threw her off the boat and tried to say she was stealing from him. And then now this is what you do. Like, Diddy is just beyond, oh my goodness. Diddy is beyond nefarious, okay? Mel said, yes, it sounds like Cassie was strung out. She absolutely was. Her husband had to help her get off of these illegal substances when they got together. It's such a shame that they were doing all this stuff. I mean, their bodies are probably just run through at this point, at their young, or at her young age, no less.
No one wants to be urinated on. So saying these were consensual terms of a relationship gets harder to believe to a juror once you've.
He said no one wants that done to them, but some people clearly do. That's why some people let people do it. Now, I'm not talking about Cassie, but y'all heard what Young Miami said and how she was laughing. She thought it was all gravy. Some people like that nasty R stuff, unfortunately.
Establish that he's doing things so far outside of the norm.
Yeah, and so, you know, the defense said essentially, look, this is his lifestyle. This is his life. And that they are essentially trying to go inside Diddy's bedroom to prosecute him when they couldn't get him elsewhere. It's stunning to me that this parallels exactly what one of the lead lawyers, Mark Agnifilo, told us in our documentary, The Downfall of Diddy. I believe it was the second installment. This is what Agnifilo said, and they presented essentially this to the jury.
Let's switch our focus to the government. In my opinion, I'm just going to say it the way it is. No.
This is Diddy's attorney, Mark Agnifilo, talking when he was in that documentary.
No friend historically of the successful black man. Okay, none. And they start making this case, in my opinion, as a takedown of a successful black man. Here's a man who has made some of the most important businesses owned by a black man, run, owned, created, founded. The vision was that of a black man. What have we done? We have reduced him, not everyone, but a large amount of our society, to being a monster. That should make us shake in our boots.
So
Yep,
he
and that's
went
essentially
on.
what Tony Garagos said during opening. That this is that she said the government has no business in his bedroom. They have no business judging him or trying to charge him with crimes based on how he lives his life consensually in his bedroom.
So there are three main charges here. There's racketeering. The difficulty prosecutors have in this case is racketeering is usually an organization. This one, they're focusing on an individual. The only person charged with racketeering is Diddy.
Right.
And they're saying essentially he ran a crime organization centered around all of this. The second thing they're arguing is this interstate transportation, which is what we call the Mann Act, which requires force or coercion or duress. And that's going to be a huge point that the defense is going to raise, namely that did these alleged victims who were ex-girlfriends, most of them, did they do this consensually or were they pressured to do it?
Well, the prosecutors did talk about that, not so much with Cassie, but with another ex-girlfriend who they're referring to as Jane Doe. And they said that she is going to testify that she was, having sex with these escorts, but she always wanted them to wear condoms, and Diddy forbade that. So they are not going to wear condoms. And she says that she admits taking drugs, and she's going to testify to that, but that she is going to say that she only took them to get through it because this was not something she really wanted to do, and that Diddy was, there's the coercion that the government needs to show the jury. So.
But the third one is this interstate transportation of a sex worker, which doesn't require fraud, duress, or coercion. That's the one, in a way,
they kind of got him on. Because he's admitting that.
Well,
he's admitting.
No. But you know what the issue is? The issue is, are these sex workers?
Right.
And that's going to be a big part of this, because if they are sex workers and the jury believes it, and they did cross state lines, he's going to have a tough time with that third charge. But the argument they're going to make is these people, they were men, were not sex workers. That's going to, again, this is going to get
then the definition of what makes and
what makes somebody a sex worker.
And is that are one of those sex workers, one of the escorts, going to be testifying for the government saying, yes, I was a sex worker? If they have that.
Our information is that we know of at least one person who has been subpoenaed, who they say is a sex worker. This guy says he wasn't a sex worker, although concedes that he was in that room having freak-offs with Cassie, as Diddy watched. So that, there are three very different charges here. And, they're all going to be kind of intermingled in terms of the testimony, but ultimately the jury is going to be told, look at this, here are the elements, look at this, here are the elements, and look at this, here are the elements.
By the way, just a couple quick things, a little bookkeeping. The jury that was finally seated this morning, 8 men, 4 women. Reportedly, the 8 men are split evenly, 4 men of color and 4 white men. And the women are all women of color. So interesting. We'll see what that does. And Diddy's, we should also say Diddy's family, his kids were all there. I don't know if they're going to be there every day, but all of his kids, the twins, his sons were all there.
And before court started today, he was in court reading a Bible.
Yes. And actually, I just saw a report that says that he has been at every opportunity reading that Bible while he's in court.
Hold on. Who the hell's in court reading a Bible, y'all? I know they're not talking about Diddy. Y'all hear this? They said he was before court, he was reading a Bible, and every chance he gets, he's reading a Bible. Diddy, please don't try it. Y'all listen to this. Now Diddy wants to get close to God. What? Ooh, Diddy is landed on thick. Mel said, not Satan, okay? Diddy knows he is landed on thick, honey. He's sitting up there with those glasses on, hair all gray, wearing a cardigan sweater with a polo, trying to look like he's all preppy and just innocent. And now, to add insult to injury, he's reading a Bible. Diddy, if you don't sit down somewhere, honey, the Most High doesn't know you anymore. Have you lost your mind? Please pay attention. It's all nefarious.
Hi, it's Tasha from Brooklyn. And I mean, we've moved past the 6-pack of white women on the jury and we've arrived at 8 men and 4 women. So I still think there's a big bias here, especially if the defense is mounting this narrative that, you know, on some level, boys will be boys. Like, we can maybe allegedly commit domestic violence, but we also have our kinks, right? And I think that naturally will lend itself to some more sympathy from the male perspective, if I had to be honest. But I'm also honestly very surprised that the jury won't be sequestered, given how much information is out there.
You hit on something, because I got to tell you, I don't know how this jury avoids social media. You know, you open your Facebook page and boom, there's a feed.
I don't know how exactly. If they go onto social media, they're going to see something about the trial. The judge has said they are not to watch news or
impossible
or use the internet.
It is
how is
just impossible for a 9-week trial. That is going to be the biggest hurdle to avoid a mistrial. Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, they are back. That would be one Taylor Swift and one Travis Kelce out and about to get.
I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely cannot. Okay, I mean, the nerve of Diddy, honey. See, thinking. Okay, so let's get into these updates. I am just so done at this point. How about y'all? Talking about reading a darn Bible. Okay, Diddy, it's not going to work. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so Cassie Ventura testified that she and Sean Diddy Combs would go to sex clubs, okay, where she would have sex with Combs or an escort. Ventura said she didn't want to have sex with the escort, but Combs would request it. Ventura testified that she told Combs she didn't like the sex clubs and that they made her feel uncomfortable. I didn't even know there was such thing. I must be really lame. She said he'd usually just like keep pushing, or just try to convince me that it'd be a fun thing to do, or that we wouldn't go for long. She said she would often drink alcohol or do rugs, okay, with a D, before they went. This is also crazy. It just seems to me like Diddy, like, is he addicted to sex? Okay, because this seems like all he wanted to do was these nefarious freak-offs. This is all crazy. Okay, so anyway, then she testified saying that Cassie Ventura is now testifying about a time in August of 2013 when she was sleeping in her apartment after going out with some friends. She said she woke up to a commotion with Sean Diddy Combs in her apartment yelling about her being asleep and not packing for an upcoming trip. 2 of her friends jumped on his back because he was trying to attack her. She said eventually we ended up from the living room into the master bedroom and they were still jumping on his back. And when he threw me down, I hurt my eyebrow on the corner of my bed. She testified, adding that she had a pretty significant gash on the side of her eyebrow. One of Combs' security guards took Ventura to a plastic surgeon that day to suture her injury. She sent an image of her injury to Combs later that day with a text, so you can remember. Okay, this is what she said in the text, saying, so you can remember. She said, I didn't want him to forget what he did. She testified saying that at the very least, I just wanted him to be sorry about it. The jury saw a photo of Ventura and rapper French Montana at a festival shortly after the incident. She testified that she styled her hair over her wound so it wouldn't be visible. Ventura pointed to her eyebrow on the witness stand and said she has a permanent scar from 2013. She says, I cover it with makeup. It's a darn shame. It's messing up her pretty face. Okay, Cassie Ventura testified that Sean Diddy Combs frequently threatened her with releasing videos of freak-offs if she didn't behave the way he wanted. She said this was a big part of the relationship. Then she says, they say Cassie Ventura said that Sean Diddy Combs stayed on his friend's boat one time to attend the Canaan's Film Festival, where they got into an argument after he accused her of stealing rugs from him. He kicked me off the boat with no shoes early one morning, and I walked over to his staff's hotel and I stayed in somebody's room, she says. At an event at the festival, Combs kept giving her evil glares. I mean, he was serious about his rugs. Okay. She said he would grab my leg and like squeeze my thighs as tight as he could. And I was wearing a beaded dress. So it was really painful, she says. Now, on the flight back home, Ventura said that she switched seats so that she wouldn't have to sit next to him. But then he traded seats with the person next to her. Okay, further to antagonize her clearly. On the flight, she said he played videos of the freak-offs that Ventura thought she had deleted. And then he told her he was going to embarrass her and then release them. When they landed in New York, she said they went out to dinner. And then he wanted her to have a freak off. Now imagine this. Somebody does you like this, kicks you off a boat, accuses you of stealing their rugs with a G, and then you try to avoid them on the plane. But no, they switch seats with somebody just so they can sit next to you and harass you and intimidate you and threaten you further and just make you uncomfortable and annoy you. And then sits there showing her videos that she thought were gone, deleted. And he's sitting there saying, yeah, don't tick me off. I'll release all this and embarrass your ass. This is what he's doing. But now when y'all land, all of a sudden he wants a freak off. Diddy is the devil, honey. Okay, please pay attention. So she says he wanted a freak off, so we had a freak off. See, that's the problem. I would have had anything with him. Okay, whatever was going to make him not be angry at me and threatening me, I was willing to do. I just didn't want to feel scared anymore, and it was the one thing he made me feel like I was good at. Honey, this is all crazy. This is psychological manipulation, okay? At the end of the day. Yes, Claudette says diabolical demon. I mean, there is no way I would have kept doing these freak offs. Diddy would have to kill me, honey. Okay, at the end of the day, he'd had to kill me. I'd have had to kill him because somebody would have been up out of here and straight into the spiritual realm is all I'm saying, honey. I could only take so much. Can y'all imagine? I think you're sitting up there making her do this stuff and then recording it and then threatening. Oh, I'm going to release this so everybody can see it. What kind of idiot? And this makes me want to fight Diddy right now, okay? This makes me want to fight him. And I might go up in that courtroom and just lose control and just pounce on Diddy, y'all. I'm just, like, this doesn't make y'all just so angry just thinking about the stuff that he's allegedly done. I believe he did it too. I believe the devil did it, okay? It's all crazy. I mean, how can you get a moment's rest when it's freak off here, freak off there? Every time you look up, it's a damn freak off. Did he have anything else going on in life? How did Diddy make all this money, do all these shows, get all these keys to cities and all this, when all it seems he was doing was freak offs? All right. Damn, Diddy. Freak. Anyway, I'm glad I got that out of my system, honey, because I absolutely cannot. Tatiana says, poor Cassie, she was so trapped. Let me tell y'all something. Cassie should have left a long time ago. Let me tell you something. The best way to get out of trouble is to never get in it in the first place, okay? When she first started dating Diddy and he started talking to her about freak-offs and, swapping and swinging and all this stuff, she should have said no. See, once you say yes to something like that, something you really don't want to do or whatever, and you compromise your integrity and you let somebody go past your boundaries, they're going to keep expecting you to do it. Now, when you say no, oh, it's a problem. That's why you should never get started. Okay, I think Cassie was enjoying this stuff in the first place, but then I think she started realizing she's just been used because it seems like the only time she talks of being intimate with Diddy was in a darn freak off. Okay? And then think about the time when she said yesterday when she was on the stand, she said that she wanted to be with him by herself. She called him and she sent him that text message saying she wanted to frock. Y'all remember that? And she said she sent that to him just because she knew that's the only time she could get alone time with him. And then he asked her, are you going to call somebody? She said, I just want to do it with you. And he was like, that was a joke to him. That was literally a joke to him. Diddy is a sick pervert, okay? Latasha said exactly, Queen. Who would do that but someone who liked it? Okay, it's no way I would even have got started down that road, honey. It's all crazy. I mean, this is their daily life. Freak offs 3 and 4 times a week for hours. It's all just so sick. Ugh. I don't know about y'all, honey, but this is all just too much. This is all just too much. Okay, so anyway. Let me see what they have going on here. Hold on, let me see what Harvey's talking about. Beloveds. Anyway, Just Anticipate said, did he ever see his kids? Dang. I know. Like, how do you have time to just be doing all this nefarious stuff?
What the prosecution needs to prove is force or coercion. And there is no doubt, I think, in any jury's mind that if you say to somebody, I'm going to release video of you in a freak off, that's extortion, except what it requires is this: unless you do something or unless you don't do something. She has not closed that loop yet. She hasn't said he threatened to release video of the freak offs unless I participated in more of them. If she said that squarely, case over as far as I'm concerned. That's coercion, and that's enough, I think, for the jury to convict. She hasn't completed that loop and said the threat to release the freak off videos was so she would do X. She hasn't said that squarely, but there's certainly an intimation there that he was forcing her to do things. Is that enough? I don't know, but it's certainly something. And it's important if he's holding something like that over her head. Now, the reason I said that it's not what you think in terms of why the prosecutors won is I think that statement about threatening to release the videos is really damning. But the other stuff that came out in the case, I don't know. I don't know that the jury is going to find necessarily force or coercion, because it's not just what's in Cassie's head, what she fears. It's what Diddy either communicates or insinuates. I didn't hear that today. So I want to give you a couple of examples of this, okay? So they talked about, I'm going to read this actually from a transcript of the hearing. We have a transcript. So here's what it says. Prosecutor, do you recall all of the freak-offs? Cassie, that would be impossible. Prosecutor, did you want to stop? She says, yes. I was humiliated. I didn't have those words then. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Prosecutor, did you tell him you didn't want to? She says, yes. And then she says, I brought it up gently. I didn't want him to just do it with someone else. Remember, they were boyfriend, girlfriend at the time. Were you able to express your concerns to him? And the defense objects. The prosecutor rephrases the question. Why would you talk to him gently? She says, I didn't want him to be angry. So, yes, she says, I talked to him gently. What does gently mean? What does that mean? And you know that on cross-examination, the defense is going to raise that issue. What did you mean by saying you brought it up gently? Because, again, it's not what's in her head. It is what he either says or insinuates to cause coercion or create force. Okay, that's one example. Here's another one, and this gets a little bit graphic, okay? Prosecutor, did you want to be urinated on? It came out with the sex worker who testified earlier that he would urinate at Diddy's direction on Cassie. So during the freak-offs. So prosecutor, did you want to be urinated on? Defense, objection. And they get into the objection. The judge overrules it. And she says, no, I did not want it. Prosecutor, how did it feel? Cassie, it was disgusting. It was too much. I choked. No one could think I wanted it. Prosecutor, why were you choking? Cassie, too much urine in my mouth. Prosecutor, who else urinated on you? Cassie, Sean. So it wasn't just the sex worker, it was Sean, according to.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right here, beloveds, because quite frankly, they're going to lunch. Okay, they're going to lunch until 1:15. So I'll be back at 1:15. And also, you all take a break, get some lunch, get some snacks, popcorn, whatever. It's going to get real crazy when we get back. And Harvey's wrong. The S worker didn't say he did it in Diddy's direction. The S worker said Cassie told him to do it. How's everybody glossing over that? Okay, I know I'm not crazy. All right. So with that all being said, I will see you all at 1:15. Okay, I'm going to post the other link as soon as I close out of here. And we will get back started. Okay. Pretty Wing said, the S worker said Cassie asked to be. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's sitting there talking about the S worker said it Diddy's direction. No, that's what Cassie said. The S worker said Cassie told him to do it. Exactly. Okay. So anyway, I will see you all after lunch. I love you all to life. Hope you're enjoying the broadcast, and I will see you all soon. Okay. If you don't return, catch it on the replay. All right. Shout out to the replay gang, by the way. Okay. So love you all to life. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
Hey, yo, Nick, hit him with that flavor. Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunsa. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. That's See right. A bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got